So the Packers will receive, and John will get a chance right away to look at that confrontation that we've been talking about as Tom Flores talks to quarterback Jim Plunkett of the defending world champions.
I think that'll have a lot to do, as I said, Jim, with the outcome of this game. If those cornerbacks can take away the fine long passing game of the Packers with Lofton and Jefferson, then I think you'll see the Raiders do whatever they want to do today.
The Raiders are an extremely deep and talented ball club. They are a team that is very confident. They say they are not cocky, they are confident, and they want to prove something. They want to repeat as Super Bowl champions.
And of course, Jim Plunkett also wants to prove that he should be mentioned in the same breath with the Staubachs and the Bradshaws. He feels he's not in that situation right now, wants to go back to the Super Bowl again to prove that.
All right, Chris Barr is all set to kick off for the Raiders. Back deep for the Packers, Harlan Huckabee, number 25. Huckabee is a real specialist for this ball club. Last week in the second half against the Cardinals, he had a 54-yard kickoff return in the second half that really got him started. So here's the kick, and our ball game is underway. Huckabee at the 5. And brought down about the 12-yard line of the Green Bay Packers. That's where the Packers will take over first and 10. Tackle there made by number 45, James Davis. Here's a look at the Green Bay Packers offensive backs and receivers. Lynn Dickey, Gary Ellis, Jesse Clark, James Lofton, and John Jefferson, the two fine receivers we talked about. The offensive line, Henry Childs, Carl Swanky, Dressler, McCarron, Kitson, and Cook.
Ball spotted at the 12-yard line.
We'll get a look at the Raider defense in just a moment. First and 10 for the Packers at their own 12-yard line. Dickey back to pass. Complete to Gary Ellis, but tackled there by Reggie Kinlaw, number 62, the man they call the Lawman. All right, the defense for the defending Super Bowl champions. Howie Long, Reggie Kinlaw, who just made the tackle, and Lyle Alzado, the 3 down linemen. The linebackers, and they are a good group. Stanley Adams, who's filling in for the retired Ted Hendricks, Matt Millen, Bob Nelson, and, of course, Rod Martin. In the secondary, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, Mike Davis, and Van McElroy, and they are considered one of the finest defensive secondaries in all of professional football. Second and 12 now for the Packers at their 10-yard line. Dickey to pass again. In and out of the hands of James Lofton.
And, you know, I think right in the first series of plays, you'll see what the Packers intend to do. They intend to try to get the ball to their tight end off the backside of the slot, also to their backside of the backfield. They feel, and Dickey told us straight out, they feel we can't live and die with getting the ball to Lofton and Jefferson, though we will certainly try. We have to use our tight end. Henry Childs replacing Paul Kaufman is a serious question mark here. Kaufman, one of the best tight end receivers in the game. They will miss him today. Henry Childs has to pick up the slack.
All right, third down and 12 yards to go for the Packers from their own 10-yard line. Dickey for the third straight time back to pass. Into the flat to Jesse Clark. And Jesse Clark fights off a couple of would-be tacklers and picks up enough yardage for the first down. Rod Martin and Van McElroy coming in to make the tackle.
How often, Jim, do you see the Los Angeles Raiders miss as many tackles as they do? I admit Jesse Clark made a terrific run, but here Dickey is not trying to force the ball up the field and get an interception. He just flips it out here to Clark, who then cuts back inside. Millen misses. Okay, there's another miss right there. Bob Nelson, number 51, and he picks up that first down on his own.
That completion good for 15 yards and a first down for the Packers at their own 26-yard line. First and 10. Again to pass. Pass intended for James Lofton, incomplete. Mike Haynes there on the coverage. And, you know, it's kind of strange because all the Packers were talking about to us yesterday was, yeah, we know that they have great defensive backs and we may not try and pass a lot. That's all they've done so far.
And Mike Haynes will challenge. Many consider him the best pure cornerback. See, he waits to the last minute. Lofton tries to come over him to get the ball. And, of course, Lofton is a major problem for Haynes and Hayes because he's 6 feet 3 inches tall, a real thoroughbred of a wide receiver. But this man is the best pure cornerback in football today.
And they both will be tested severely this afternoon. Second and 10 from their 26-yard line for the Packers. Dickey again to pass. Toss downfield, into and out of the hands of Jesse Clark. Rod Martin is defending there, and that's one of the things that Dickey told us he wanted to do. He wanted to get a back out of the backfield, up the field, and isolate them one-on-one on Raider linebackers.
Exactly right, Jim. They'll put 2 wide receivers to one side of the field as they did that time to the right side of the field, and then they'll come backside either looking for their tight end, number 89, Henry Childs, or looking for a back out of the backfield, either Clark or Ellis. That time, he just didn't get the ball to Ellis, although he was open.
Dickey right now 2 of 5 for 15 yards. It's 3rd down and 10 from the Packers' 26-yard line. The Raiders now in a 4-man rush. What they call their bandit defense. And it's Dickey back to pass again. Lyle Alzado, number 77, was the first to get in and put in pressure. And Mike Davis on a safety blitz came in and made the sack.
And you see there's a Packer down on the field. Take a look at it from the end zone. Carl Swanky, number 67. Watch the right side of your screen. He's trying to block Lyle Alzado. There is pressure up the middle. Dickey tries to scramble out, but he runs right into Alzado, and Swanky can't handle him as there's a Packer down on the field.
And that looks like Dickey. And if it is Lynn Dickey, it is really going to be a serious blow for the Packers if he has to leave the ball game. Meanwhile, Lynn Dickey is hurt on the field. There's no score here in the first period. The Packers, just a little bit, and he's out of the ball game. But right now it is 4th down for the Packers. Bucky Scribner back to punt for the Packers, and here is Greg Pruitt. Pruitt hit and fumble. And it looks like the Packers have recovered. Darrell Jones, number 43 for the Packers, makes the recovery. Greg Pruitt, who last year was the leading punt returner for the whole National Football League, kind of unusual, uncharacteristic for him to fumble as he was tackled, and a big break for the Packers.
Of course, he's used to running the ball all the years in the NFL. Here he takes it. He's carrying it way outside. See how he's carrying it outside. He's dodging men. He's just hit. Nothing severe, but he coughs it up. And what a break as Jones comes up with the ball for the Packers.
There's a look at Darrell Jones. Big break for the Packers. Now, Lynn Dickey is out, and that means the rookie, Randy Wright from Wisconsin, 6'2", 194 pounds, is on the spotlight.
Randy White at quarterback.
1st and 10 from the Raider 39-yard line. Handoff to Gary Ellis. Stop for a yard loss there by Mike Davis, once again doing a lot of blitzing.
We want to take another look because it's so, Dickey being hurt changes the whole complexion of this game. Take a look at Alzado from the outside, beating his man. But Dickey sees Mike Davis on the safety blitz up the middle, tries to evade it, can't get away from Alzado, and then he's hit right here by Davis and jammed to the turf. We don't have a report. We'll try to find out exactly what's wrong with Dickey as Randy Wright is at quarterback, the rookie, as you said, out of Wisconsin. What a spot to be in.
That was the first running play for the Packers, and it was for -1 yard. 2nd and 11 from the Raider 40-yard line. Randy Wright, rookie from Wisconsin. And there's a flag on the play, and I would imagine that that's for a delay of game. And that's kind of a typical mistake that a young rookie might make, especially at the quarterback position, who's really on the spot now.
Delay of the game by the defense, 5 yards, still 2nd down.
By the offense, of course, the Packers take that penalty as we look at Lynn Dickey along the back, and he was speared in the back. So we're going to wait to see if we can get any further report whether he'll be back. He had some problems last week. Remember, he talked about being speared last week. Late in the game here, you see he's in some pain, having trouble moving on the bench. And Wright's at quarterback.
And let's see if the Raiders really try and put a lot of pressure on the young rookie. Handoff up the middle to Harlan Huckabee. Tackle there by number 77, Lyle Alzado.
And Jim, a telling comment. You just said before you saw the first running play by the Green Bay Packers. Okay, there we see another running play after a penalty. It changes the entire complexion of this game, having this young man, Randy Wright, out of Wisconsin in there. They'll try to run the ball. They'll try to take some pressure off, and they'll try to let him have some success so that he gets his feet on the ground against the world champion Raiders.
And the Raiders are doing all kinds of shifting on their defensive alignment, really trying to confuse them already. 3rd and 12. Right, handing off to Jesse Clark. Tackle there made by Lyle Alzado as he picks up just about 3 or 4 yards. And as you mentioned, it's really just changes the whole complexion of this particular ball game.
3-yard gain on the play.
Other scores around the National Football League this afternoon. Here is a final. St. Louis defeating Buffalo 37-7. A big win for the Cardinals. And here is a shocker. The upset, I would imagine, of the year so far, the young season. Phil Simms leading the New York Giants over the Dallas Cowboys. And another final, Miami over New England 28-7. Those Dolphins behind Marino. Bucky Scribner back to punt for the Packers. And again, it will be Greg Pruitt about his own 10-yard line. Ball goes into and out of the end zone for a touchback.
Ball goes out of the end zone for a touchback. Raiders take over 1st and 10.
So the Raiders dodge the bullet. Lynn Dickey is injured for the Green Bay Packers. There is no score in the first period. And back at the Coliseum, along with John Dockery, I am Jim Hill. No score here in the first period. The defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Raiders going against the Green Bay Packers, and it is the Raiders' first possession. And Plunkett hands off to Marcus Allen. All right, here's a look now at the starting offensive unit for the defending world champions. Jim Plunkett, of course, at quarterback. Marcus Allen, Kenny King, the running backs. Cliff Branch and Malcolm Barnwell, the wide receivers. The offensive line, Todd Christensen, Bruce Davis, Charlie Hanna, Jim Romano filling in for the injured Mickey Marvin there. And Don Mosbar, I should say, is in. Henry Lawrence. Jim Romano is in for Dave Dalby. And Mosbar in for Mickey Marvin. And Plunkett back to pass. Complete to Malcolm Barnwell up about the 29-yard line, which would be just short of a first down. Tackle there made by George Cumbie. A look at the Packer defense, and it is a young one. Carricker and Humphrey are the two young rookies. Of course, Terry Jones is a man in the middle. The two rookies, we're told, are going to be just outstanding football players. Their linebackers, a set of good ones. Anderson Scott, Cumbie, and Mike Mad Dog Douglas. In the secondary, Mark Lee, Tim Lewis, Mark Murphy, and Tom Flynn, who is a rookie back there, and he's a young man that's on the spot.
Frank Hawkins now in the backfield.
3rd and 1 for the Raiders. Hand off to Allen. And he stopped short of the first down. As a matter of fact, he may have lost about a half a yard there. Tackle there made by Bill Neal.
What a strong play, because we all have heard about the size and the talent of that offensive line. But big Bill Neal, you might remember him playing for the New York Giants, had some knee problems over the last few years. He was picked up by the Packers because they do have a deficiency at nose guard. That time, Neal stops the Raiders short. They have to punt.
And Ray Guy's in punt formation for the Raiders, going to Philip Epps. Ball lands and goes out of bounds about the 30-yard line, and that's where the Packers will take over. There is a timeout on the field. The Green Bay Packers will have the ball 1st and 10 at their own 31-yard. Who was injured. We'll talk about Randy a little bit later, because the Packers coaches have a great deal of confidence in him. Not as much as Dickey, but Wright is on the spot now. And he's back to pass. Complete to John Jefferson, knocked out of bounds at the Packer 35-yard line by Lester Hayes.
What a good feeling for the young quarterback, hitting that first completion. And, you know, watch John Jefferson right here. Obviously one of the best receivers in the game. Not the speed or the deep threat of James Lofton. Here he goes in motion and just does a quick out. Wright delivers the ball before Lester Hayes can get there. It's a good gain for about 5 yards.
2nd and 6 from the Packer 35-yard line. Hand off to Jesse Clark up the middle. He gets up to about the 39-yard line. Tackle there made by Lyle Alzado.
I was just talking about Randy Wright a moment ago, the young man, number 16, the rookie out of Wisconsin. And, you know, the quarterback situation on the Packers, of course, Lynn Dickey is the man. They'd like him to stay around a little bit while longer as they build. But Wright burst right by Rich Campbell. He's the 4th-year man out of Cal. He was a #1 draft choice a few years back, but they thought Randy Wright did so well, and they're so high on him. They got rid of Whitehurst. They put him ahead of Campbell, and here he is going against the world champion Raiders.
3rd and 1. Wright tosses out to Gary Ellis. Coming up out of the secondary is Mike Haynes and Dan McElroy to force Ellis out of bounds.
And if they can get that running game going at all, it will take the pressure off Wright and give him a chance to pick and choose his position to throw the ball. But take a look at that Raider defense. Possibly the best in the NFL. Here it's a little motion. Ellis gets the ball, gets some decent blocking out front. You see right there the lead blocker. He detains number 37, Lester Hayes. That gives gives Ellis a chance to get the extra yard for the first down. No, it's 4th and short, Jim. He did not make it.
So the Packers will have to punt. That means Bucky Scribner from Kansas will be in punt formation. And there's a look at Greg Pruitt once again back about his 15-yard line to receive it. Pruitt at the 15. Greg Pruitt. Tackle there made by number 43, Darryl Jones, who made the fine fumble recovery a little while ago. And that's one of the things that the Raiders really feel they have to get is their special team starter. There is no score here in the first period. The Los Angeles Raiders going against the Green Hill in the Coliseum in Los Angeles. The home opener for the defending Super Bowl champion Raiders as they're playing the Green Bay Packers. 1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 37-yard line. Jim Plunkett at quarterback. And Plunkett is back to pass. Tosses to Marcus Allen. And Marcus Allen, with a couple of nifty moves, picks up about 8.5 to 9 yards. Tackle there made by Mike Douglas.
A simple principle. Get a good running back in the open field by himself and watch what can happen. As you see, Jim Plunkett is going to throw this ball right at you. Allen in motion. And they say Allen's not the fastest back end, but on the field at football speed, watch here, quickness, the ability to spin and get that extra yardage.
2nd and 1 for the Raiders at their 46. Hand off to Kenny King. Once again, Mike Douglas, the fine linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, on the tackle. And there is a flag on the play.
And where the ball is, that's where Mike Douglas will be. He's the man that leads his team in tackles the last 3 of the 4 years as we await the penalty call right here.
Holding, number 52 on the offense. Still 2nd down, 10-yard penalty.
Brett Cashin, the referee, against Jim Romano, who's filling in for Dave Dalby today. Romano played for Dalby last week in the Houston game and came in and did an admirable job. But of course, Dalby has that groin injury. He's what they call their Iron Man. He hasn't missed a game in 12 years. And of course, he told us yesterday that he will be in for special team purposes, like snapping for punch today.
But, Jim, this team is so deep that a guy like Jim Romano in his 3rd year out of Penn State can come in for a veteran like Dalby, 13 years out of UCLA, and there be very little drop-off. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the supporting cast. When you look at Mospar and Hanna at the guards, Davis and Lawrence, you're looking at a very experienced offensive line surrounding young Jim Romano.
2nd and 10 for the Raiders at their own 37-yard line. No score. And Plunkett back to pass. Gets pressure, throws downfield, complete to Cliff Branch. Branch tackled by Tim Lewis at the midfield stripe, and it is enough yardage for the first down. Also, number 79, Donnie Humphrey, in on the tackle.
Jim Plunkett will stand in here. Take a look at Branch right here, working on the inside. That little bump, Branch drives the defensive back, Mark Lee, to the outside, come back and make the ball. Is actually Tim Lewis. Here's Plunkett after he throws the ball. Blitzes on. You see Douglas, number 52, coming, and then he's hit by Randy Scott and pays the price for that completion.
1st and 10 for the Raiders at the 50-yard line. And it's Plunkett going back to pass again. Good protection. Complete to Malcolm Barnwell. Jim Plunkett going to Malcolm Barnwell. First down for the Raiders, deep in Packer territory. That play good for 32 yards.
And, Jim, if you're number 37, Mark Murphy, playing the deep zone, and that rush does not get to the quarterback, you're in deep trouble because Christensen's going down the middle. Murphy has to respect him. Therefore, it leaves Barnwell open on the outside in that double-double deep zone. A real problem for a safety if the rush doesn't get there.
Malcolm Barnwell from Virginia Union in his 4th year. 1st and 10 for the Raiders. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen spinning, twisting, turning. picking up a couple of yards there. Tackle made by Tim Lewis.
And Don Anderson.
And we have a Raider on the ground. They're attending to him. It looks like the cornerback. It looks like Tim Lewis down, the second-year man out of Pitt, who did a heck of a job turning that play in, fighting off the blocker and forcing Allen inside.
So we're seeing early today, John, where the Packers are losing a lot of starters at key positions. You know, Lynn Dickey, the quarterback, Tim Lewis at defensive cornerback.
And Jim, they're not deep enough to have those kinds of injuries, especially at the quarterback position. It would be a different story if Forrest Gregg were Tom Flores, where Plunkett's there and behind him is Mark Wilson. But Gregg doesn't have the luxury of losing a starting defensive back cornerback like Lewis, who was just hurt, nor his quarterback, Lynn Dickey. Jim
Plunkett is a perfect 4 for 4 for 59 yards. 2nd and 7 at the Packer 15-yard line. Plunkett to pass again. Complete to Cliff Branch at about the 6-yard line. Knocked out of bounds there by number 38, Estes Hood.
And if you think Jim Plunkett isn't a smart quarterback, Estes Hood just came in to replace Tim Lewis. What do? They send Branch right out on him, runs a square out for the completion. Take a look at it at the end. He drives it down and cuts it out. The ball is well thrown. Estes Hood just off the bench, not really time to warm up. Tries to recover, but he can't.
Branch, one of the all-time leading receivers for the Los Angeles Raiders. 1st and 6 from the 6. Frank Hawkins. Hawkins plows his way inside the 5-yard line down to about the 3.
And the biggest problem the Packers have had over the last few years is their defense. They try to shore it up this year. They have 3 rookies starting in that defensive team, both defensive ends, Carrick and Humphrey, and also the safety, Tom Flynn. But they were the worst defense in the NFL last year, Jim.
Kind of amazing for Forrest Gregg, who was with the Cincinnati Bengals, going from the best defense when he was with Cincinnati now to the worst defense last year with the Green Bay Packers.
Life is filled with its little ironies.
2nd and 2 from the 2. Marcus Allen.
Again, you saw Bill Neal, number 77, penetrating. That's what surprises me most. I expected that awesome offensive line of the Raiders to just push around this young defensive line from the Packers. But Bill Neal has made a couple of big plays. Remember, 3rd and short, he broke through to stop Allen. Here again, he penetrates and stops that play.
Well, yesterday, Forrest Gregg was telling us the only thing he wants his club to do is to play hard. He said if you play hard, everything else will take care of itself.
And they are doing exactly that at this moment, Jim.
3rd and 3 for the Raiders. Plunkett to pass. Touchdown, Todd Christensen.
The best play near the goal line in football is the rollout, the pass-run option. Plunkett does not want to run the ball. He's been around too long. Here he has too much time, and Christensen, like a basketball player under the boards, uses his body against Scott, goes up. See Scott behind him. He actually had good coverage. But Todd Christensen, 6'3", 230, went up, used that body, and Scott, who's only 6'1", couldn't get him.
The conversion by Chris Barr is good. And the Raiders have just caught the touchdown pass. Barr kicks off. This will be Del Rogers, 2 yards in the end zone. Gets out to just about the 15 to 16-yard line after hesitating in the end zone. Derek Jensen, number 31, down on the special teams unit to make the tackle for the Raiders.
Derek Jensen.
And there's a scoring drive, Jim. 8 plays, a nice drive, mixed up the run and the pass. 63 yards, took a little over 4 minutes. Plunkett to Christensen, 3-yard touchdown. Raiders lead Green Bay 7-0. Just makes it a lot more difficult for young Randy Wright coming in, trailing 7-0.
He's going to have to forget that he's a rookie and go to work. 1st and 10 for the Packers at their own 16-yard line. Jefferson in motion. And Wright's back to pass. Complete to Henry Childs.
Henry Childs.
Henry Childs,
Lester Hayes on the
who today
tackle.
is filling in for Paul Kaufman. You know, it was kind of strange yesterday. We were talking with Kaufman about Henry Childs and Len Dickey about Henry, and he said that one of the things that he's concerned with about Henry is that the age factor with him and him coming out here and competing in this heat.
You know, Henry Childs, you're right. He's been in the league 9 years, but he hasn't played or started a game since 1981. Folks might have remembered him. He had some good years with New Orleans, but now the pressure's on him because Kaufman's gone, and the young quarterback Wright needs Henry Childs in his game plan.
2nd and 2. Hand off to Gary Ellis. And Ellis picks up enough yardage for the first down before being tackled by Van McElroy.
Credit that to the offensive line. They just caved down that defensive line from the Raiders and gave Ellis running room outside. Excellent blocking as you look at Ellis's career statistics.
Picking up enough yardage for the first down. 1st and 10 at the Packer 34-yard line.
Take a look how the offensive line, some good blocking out front. Right there, Ellis to the outside. Finally, McElroy comes over to wrestle him down.
Gary Ellis and Jesse Clark in the backfield for the Packers. Randy Wright, the quarterback. Draw play to Clark.
And on to Jesse Clark.
Tackle there made by Matt Millen.
Matt Millen on the tackle.
Scores a final. The Chicago Bears defeating the Denver Broncos 27-0. And here's another one. The final in overtime. Detroit beating Atlanta 27-24. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. The Saints defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 17-13. Forrest Gregg, who really has to be concerned because his starting quarterback Len Dickey is out. He's trailing 7-0 against the defending world champion Raiders. Hand off to Clark.
And on to Jesse Clark.
Tackle made by Rod Martin, number 53. Martin, of course, the AFC's Defensive Player of the Year last season.
Interesting setup there. They bring in Philip Epps, the speedy wide receiver in his 3rd year out of TCU, to spread out the defense, and then they try to run a trap play up the middle. The Packer offense's game plan is totally thrown out now. With Dickey in there, you'd see the ball in the air a lot more than they're doing now with Randy Wright. It's just a requirement. They have not been able to run the ball. You remember Dickey yesterday talking about the absence of a dominant running back as being a real problem.
The Raiders in the 4-man defensive line trying to get a little push on. They get pressure on Wright. The ball was intended for James Lofton. Coverage there made by Rod Martin, who was putting in a lot of pressure on the quarterback Randy Wright, and Lester Hayes was covering downfield. And there is a flag on the play.
Excuse me, Jim, I was just going to say that Lester Hayes also had a lot of help on that. They were double covering Lofton.
Holding number 67 of the offense. That penalty is declined. It's 4th down.
Penalty against Carl Swanky. 10 seconds to go here in the first period. The Raiders leading 7-0. 4th down and 3 for the Packers. Bucky Scribner back to kick for Green Bay. Greg Pruitt back for the Raiders at about his own 15-yard line again. Pruitt at the 13. Greg Pruitt gets up to about the 23-yard line. Tackle there made by Ed West. And with that punt, that is the end of the first period here in Los Angeles, California, where the Raiders, the defending Super Bowl champions, lead the Green Bay Packers 7-0. It will be 1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 24-yard line. Jim Plunkett at quarterback for the Raiders, and Plunkett having a marvelous day. 6 for 6, 72 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 3-yarder to Todd Christensen.
But that's in keeping in what he told us at practice yesterday. I mean, he said we expect the Packers to play a lot of zone, a lot of deep zone, not give us that bomb, which we like to do, and we'll try sometime. We expect to be able to throw underneath, and that's exactly what he's done. 6 for 6. Jim
Plunkett, the veteran from Stanford. 1st and 10 for the Raiders. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Marcus is dropped for a loss by Mike Douglas, number 53. Marcus trying to make that move that made him famous in the Super Bowl, but not this particular time, as Donnie Humphrey and Mike Douglas came in to make the tackle. Douglas has been having a great game so far. He's been in on several tackles already.
And you know, Forrest Gregg, when he was talking about that defense, everyone knew how bad they were last year. Lynn Dickey saying we have to score at least 30 points to win, but Forrest Gregg said, you know, our linebackers, especially Mike Douglas, are a lot better than I thought they were watching them on film.
Mike Douglas, one fine young man. 2nd and 14 for the Raiders. Draw play to Frank Hawkins. Hawkins picks up a couple of yards there. Tackle there made by Bill Neal.
And Bill Neal is a story. I know I keep going back as Bill Neal leaves the field right now, but with the Giants, they thought an awful lot of him. I mean, he was drafted in the 5th round in 1981 by the Giants, played some terrific football for them. Many thought he'd be there for many years at nose tackle. He was injured the last couple of years, had problems. They cut him, the Packers picked him up, and they have a steal.
3rd and 13 from the Raider 21-yard line. The Raiders lead Green Bay 7-0. And Plunkett's back to pass. Going deep. Intended for Cliff Branch. Mark Lee's on coverage down there. Number 22, Mark Lee from Washington in the 5th year.
Mark Lee covering.
Well, Jim Plunkett knew he had man-to-man coverage. Lee on Branch, and of course Branch has been around a long time, 13 years, but still has good speed. Here, Lee right here stays with him. There's a lot of pushing and shoving going on, but Lee stays with the ball and knocks it away. But you see Branch's concentration, even when he's being bumped and going down, he's still looking for that ball, hoping that it'll drop right into his lap. Great concentration.
Ray Guy, excuse me, John Ray Guy back to punt. And Philip Epps catches the ball on about his 26-yard line and goes out of bounds.
Philip Epps goes out of bounds at the 26-yard line.
So with the score 7-0 in favor of the Raiders, 13:23 left in halftime. We'll be back in just a moment. In the t-shirt that says Green Bay Packers is their starting tight end Paul Kaufman, a fine tight end who's out this week with strained knee ligaments in his left knee, and he will be sorely missed.
Oh, he is. See him there with the clipboard charting the game, and Paul Kaufman, of course, one of the favorite targets of Lynn Dickey. And in a game like today, against a tough defense, you need your tight end.
1st and 10 for Green Bay. Gary Ellis, the ball carrier. Tackle made by Bill Pickell and Bob Nelson. Here's some scores in the first period. Cleveland and the Rams tied at 7-7. The Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Oilers tied in the 2nd quarter at 7-7 also. And San Diego leading Seattle 10-0 in the first period.
And there's Lynn Dickey along the sideline standing up. Doesn't seem to be in any kind of discomfort. But the report we got was that he was speared in the back and having pain.
2nd and 6 for the Packers at the 30-yard line. Right back to pass. Pressure put on Randy right there by Howie Long. Tackle made by Mike Davis. And it's Henry Childs coming up with the reception, and that was a good catch by Henry, and that's one of the things that the Green Bay coaching staff was telling us. They want to get a good, solid performance out of him today.
And you just saw Henry's career stats. He can catch the ball. He has great hands, but watch the trademark of the Raiders. Here, Long smacks right. Childs catches the ball. He's clocked right there by Davis, but makes the catch.
And makes the first down. And here comes the pressure again. Randy Wright did an excellent job of reading the blitz that particular time, completing the pass to Henry Childs. Van McElroy in on the tackle.
Boy, Henry Childs showing those big hands. What puts up the mitt, pulls it right in here. The blitz is on. You see it coming from the outside. Okay, that's Davis on the outside. Wright reads it, gets rid of it. And look at Childs. He's hit. At the same time, he still pulls the ball in.
On the offense, still first down.
Tim Huffman. Is who the penalty was called on. So it will be 1st and 15 for Green Bay at their own 32-yard line.
So it's off and naught, Jim, as they go back 1st and 15. Great catch by Childs. Means nothing.
Wright's back to pass once again. Complete to Gary Ellis. And Gary Ellis gets up to the 45-yard line. Tackle there made by Matt Millen.
Matt Millen on the tackle.
And Gary Ellis, the 50-year man out of Missouri, making people miss. Take a look at it here. Good idea when you don't have a great offensive line and you're facing a team with a good pass rush. Get the ball to your backs in a hurry. Hope they can do something with it. And Ellis does exactly that as he spins away from Millen at the end, gets a few extra yards.
That completion good for 13 yards. It will be 2nd and 2 for Green Bay at their own 45. Jesse Clark spinning up the middle, twisting and turning, picking up enough yardage for the first down. His tackle there is made by Bob Nelson and Matt Millen, the 2 inside linebackers for the Raiders.
This is not only a confidence builder for the offense, being able to move the ball on the ground, through the air, and short passes against the Raider defense. It also gives the Packer defense, which has been a problem for the last couple of years, time to rest, to gather themselves on the bench for when they have to face the Raider offense.
Especially in this heat, John, because when the Raiders get out there, you know they want to strike anytime they get a chance. White back to pass. Intended for Henry Childs, just a little bit too long. Mike Davis on the coverage. And once again, the Raiders putting on tremendous pressure. Howie Long and Lyle Alzado making Randy Wright throw just a little bit before he really wants to, and that's why the pass was incomplete and long.
Randy Wright not having a bad afternoon. 4 completions for 6 attempts for 31 yards. High percentage. And Lynn Dickey, we don't know whether he'll be back or not. He's on the sidelines. He's strolling around. And certainly, Forrest Gregg and the Packers would like to see Lynn Dickey back. He'd be a shot in the arm for them.
The Raiders in with an extra defensive lineman. And Wright's back to pass again. There's Alzado. Randy Wright did an excellent job of getting away from Lyle Alzado, who put tremendous pressure on him. And of course, Alzado was trying to complain to the referee, saying that he had him in his grasp. But of course, that is a judgment call on the part of the official. But Randy Wright is showing a lot of guts out there this afternoon for a young man who really is on the spot.
Alzado, it's grasp and control, Jim, is the rule. Alzado not only has to have a grasp, a piece of him, he also has to have the quarterback in his control.
4-man defensive alignment for the Raiders. 3rd and 10. Hand off to Gary Ellis. Tackle made by Rod Martin and Greg Townsend.
Yeah, but it was the lead block by Jesse Clark, number 33. A good lead, low block on Martin that allowed Ellis to get that kind of yardage. Take a look at it from the ground level now. Watch the lead blocker, number 33. Okay, we'll look at it from the end zone. Take a look at it to the left of your screen, number 33. Leads through the hole, gets a good block right there. You see him, he doesn't take Martin down, but he delays him long enough so that Ellis can get the good yardage.
Play action pass by Randy White. Complete to Henry Childs, just about enough for 1 or 2 yards. Randy Wright doing a heck of a job getting away from all kinds of pressure that the Raiders are really putting on him.
That's the difference when you have a young quarterback. It's a new dimension for the Packer offense. Of course, Dickey doesn't have the mobility that Wright has. Watch him here. He feels some pressure, ducks away from it, still looking upfield, has the mobility. Howie Long is chasing him. He's falling down. He still completes it to Childs.
2nd and 9 from the Raider 34-yard line for the Green Bay Packers. White back to pass. Here comes the rush. Into and out of the hands of Gary Ellis. Rod Martin on the coverage there.
Bob Nelson on the blitz, untouched. Wright did well to get rid of that ball. Ellis just didn't hold it.
Penalty flag.
And there is a flag on the play. The preliminary signal is holding against the Packers.
Holding, number 61 on the offense. 10-yard penalty, still 2nd down.
David Dressler was guilty of the infraction. So it will be 2nd down and 19 yards to go for the Packers.
And this is the time that the Raiders will come after you with those 4 defensive linemen and those 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs.
They call that their pirate defense. That means they're coming after you. But it's complete to Gary Ellis. Jeff Barnes in on the tackle. You know, it's kind of amazing that even though the Packers, as young as they are, as inexperienced as they are, right now they're doing a pretty good job.
They sure are. And if you can get the quarterback a little bit of time and isolate Ellis one-on-one with Barnes, as happens right here, you see Ellis makes a good inside moves. Barnes does well to dive and tackle him. And you're looking at Barnes, number 56, a specialist. He comes in on passing downs, replacing Stanley Adams.
Forrest Gregg hoping his Packers can continue this drive. And here's Wright back to pass again. Lyle Alzado and Howie Long.
The old and the young. 14 years out of Yankton. Howie Long, 4th year out of Villanova. Take a look at Alzado, left side of your screen. Wright never sees him. Bang, right there. Number 64, Sid Kitson, had his hands full, couldn't handle Alzado.
An 11-yard loss. Bucky Scribner back to kick for the Packers. Greg Pruitt about his own 10-yard line. The punt goes into the end zone for a touchback, and the Raiders will take over 1st and 10 at their own 20-yard line.
1st and 10, Los Angeles.
Take a look. Now imagine yourself the quarterback. You're looking upfield. You never see the backside.
45-yard kick.
Alzado uses a swim move, comes around, hits right. He never saw it.
You know, Lyle was telling me earlier in the year that he thought about not coming back this year. He thought about retiring. We had a victory today. We'll be going against these Green Bay Packers. We'll see if Lynn Dickey gets back. The second half of the doubleheader will be Philadelphia against Dallas. John, you and I will be in Pittsburgh as the Rams take on those Steelers.
In Green Bay, I mean, a lot of people thought it would be Green Bay, Chicago, and Detroit in that NFC Central, but without Lynn Dickey, they're a totally different team. They need him badly. He's on the sidelines. He's walking around. We don't know whether he'll be back in this game today.
1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 20-yard line. They lead the Packers 7-0. 7:52 left to go in the first half. Jim Plunkett at quarterback. And Plunkett's back to pass. Complete to Todd Christensen. Todd Christensen. Tackle there made by George Cumbie and Mark Murphy.
And what can you say about Todd Christensen? 92 receptions last year. What you can say about Jim Plunkett is that the experience, watch him looking to the right side. Finally, he comes back, finds Todd Christensen open against the zone. Christensen, some of that running ability. Remember, he was drafted way back when as a running back. Here, take a look at the rookie defensive end. He's getting some lessons right there as he's nowhere near Plunkett. And that's Bruce Davis, number 79.
Cliff Branch making the pass reception from Plunkett. Tackle once again made by Bill Neal, and Neal is all over the place this afternoon.
9-yard gain.
I think it's really characteristic of the Raiders here because they know what the Packers are going to do defensive-wise. They know that Green Bay is going to play a lot of zone coverage, and they're going to throw the long ball a little bit just to loosen them up. And when they get loose like that, then they're going to take exactly whatever the Packers give them in the intermediate areas. 2nd and 1 from the 44-yard line. Hand off to Marcus Allen.
Hand off to Marcus Allen.
Allen tackled at about the 45-yard line by Randy Scott and John Anderson.
You know, the Raiders are a notoriously slow-starting team. They haven't done that much in the first quarter. Here in the second quarter, you can feel the momentum picking up. But last week, they trailed Houston and Warren Moon 7-0. And you look what the Packers are doing to Marcus Allen. 6 rushes for 3 yards. Whew. They're shutting down the running game of the Raiders right now. But Plunkett is having a hot day. He's 8 of 9 for 96 yards.
1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 45-yard line. They lead the Packers 7-0. 6 minutes left in the first half. And it's Plunkett going back to pass again. Complete to Marcus Allen. Allen picks up about 1 yard. Tackle made by Tim Lewis.
Tim Lewis on the tackle.
And there's Lynn Dickey walking off the field. He's going into the locker room for x-rays. They say his legs are weak, possibly the result of the spearing that he took in the back in the first quarter.
You know, and you really feel for an individual like that because he was so cordial to us yesterday. He sat and talked with us for about an hour, and it seemed like he really didn't want to leave.
And the big smile on his face, he said, "Oh, I'm feeling so healthy. I felt the best I've felt since 1977 when I broke my leg." And, of course, Forrest Gregg needs Lynn Dickey as his quarterback if he's going to take this team to the playoffs, as he hopes they'll be able to do.
2nd and 8 for the Raiders at their 48-yard line. The blitz is on. And Plunkett just throws it out of bounds. The nearest Raider receiver was Cliff Branch. Coverage there by Tim Lewis.
Tim Lewis covering the play.
Jim Plunkett, that time just throwing the ball out of bounds. And he's such a smart veteran quarterback that he is. I think when we talked to him a couple of days ago, we found out, and he really openly admitted that he's more relaxed these days. He's just decided to just kind of go with the flow. He knows what he can do, and he's just going to go out there and do it.
And he has a few things to prove. He really says, you know, I think my peers appreciate me. I think my teammates appreciate me. But I really don't think all of football, the football world, appreciates me and talks about me in the same breath as the Starbacks and the Bradshaws.
3 wide receivers for the Raiders. Plunkett back to pass. And thrown for a loss by Robert Brown. And also Alfonso Carricker.
By Robert Brown.
Of course, Carricker, they think Carricker, number 76, the rookie out of Florida State, the #1 draft choice for the Packers right here, is going to be one of the great ones. A lot of people liken him to Mark Gastineau because of his size, 6'6", good speed, has a good outside rush. That time he didn't get there, but his buddy, the 3rd-year man out of VPI, Robert Brown, did.
4th and 16, Ray Guy back to punt for the Raiders. And Philip Epps back for the Packers. Epps at the 23. And Philip Epps goes out of bounds at about the 35-yard line, forced out there by James Davis.
James Davis pushed him out of bounds.
There is a time of seconds left in the first half. I'm Jim Hill along with John Dockery. 1st and 10 for the Green Bay Packers. Gary Ellis. Bill Pickel and Rod Martin. I know what you mean, John.
I know what you mean. Can you believe number 71, Bill Pickel, at 6'5", 260 pounds, can run down a running back the way he did there? Bill Pickel, almost a designated rusher now. 6 tackles last week, 3 sacks. Watch him right here. Yeah, I'll run with you, Ellis. Yeah, who's faster? Take a look at it. Just pulls him down from behind. They should be outlawed, Jim. Oh, my. Awesome talent.
Number 71, Bill Pickel. 2nd and 11. Loss of a yard. Packers have the ball at their own 35-yard line. Toss back to Harlan Huckabee. Penalty flags on the play. Tackle made by Matt Millen.
Penalty flag in the play.
And it looked like number 93, Greg Townsend, was a little anxious there, got into the offensive line early, and that's the call. Offsides. Raiders.
You know, Lynn Dickey was talking about his running game yesterday.
Offside. Number 93 on the defense. Still 2nd down.
Greg Townsend. You know, we're talking about Lynn Dickey. He was talking about his running game, and he was not a little, but he was very concerned about that. He said, you know, I wish one of my running backs would just come back to me and say, give me the ball 25 or 30 times. I can pick up enough yardage for him. And it's kind of surprising that in spots this afternoon, their running game has been pretty good.
And they needed it. Perhaps it's picking up the slack with their quarterback hurt. They know everyone else has to play a little bit harder.
Toss back to Gary Ellis. Ellis fights his way up to about the 42, 43-yard line. Matt Millen, number 55, in on the tackle, along with 51, Bob Nelson.
And Mike Davis, number 36, and Lyle Alzado did a pretty good job filling there. Didn't give them any room to run. Ellis not having a bad afternoon. He's already carried the ball 7 times for 33 yards. But this secondary, these defensive players are intimidating. They love to hit.
3rd and 2 now for the Packers. Randy White at quarterback. Flags on the play. It looked at that particular time like Randy and his center, Larry McCarron, had a miscommunication there.
And Jim, they had a little bit different formation in there. They had number 49, Ed West, the backup tight end for Henry Childs in the game. Of course, Paul Kaufman is out with a knee.
False start. Number 68 on the offense, 5 yards, still 3rd down.
The false start was on Greg Cook. And that's an interesting story in itself, because here's a man who was out with a back problem. And he's been taking shots trying to get himself back into condition, get ready to go. And this is his first start this year. 3rd and 7. Penalty flags again as Howie Long doesn't take any chances at all, slamming Randy Wright to the ground.
What can you say about Howie Long? All-Pro last year, 13 sacks in 1983. I mean, just an awesome talent. Many people say it's either Howie Long or Mark Gastineau as the most dominant defensive ends in the game.
Now Long and the rest of his Raider teammates are complaining to the officials.
Offside, defense, still 3rd down.
And that's the reason why the Raiders were called for offsides.
Of course, we all know that the Raider defense, they're angelic. They never do anything wrong. The Raiders would never have a penalty against them. It's one of the things they live on. They love to just intimidate. They'll take the penalties and use it for their own benefit.
3rd and 2. Right back to pass. Knocked down there by Howie Long. Great individual effort.
And it's interesting, the athletic ability of Howie Long. He can be fighting off the big offensive tackle, number 68, Greg Cook, and still have the athletic ability to get his hand off. Take a look at it right here. As Wright rolls out, watch the right of your screen. You see a battle between number 68 and there's Long. See, he's battling him. He still gets his left hand up, almost pulls it down for an interception. An outstanding athlete.
4th and 2. Bucky Scribner back to punt for the Packers. Greg Pruitt to receive for the Raiders at about his own 12-yard line. The ball gets by Pruitt and goes out of bounds at the 8-yard line of the Los Angeles Raiders. That's where the Raiders will take over. 1st and 10. 3 minutes left in the first half. The Raiders lead the Green Bay Packers 7-0. The Packers are really staying in this ball game because of their punting. Bucky Scribner just kicked the ball 48 yards deep into Raider territory. Jim Plunkett at quarterback. Calling an audible now. Hand off to Marcus Allen.
Excuse me, Jim. Interesting situation there as Marcus Allen is taken down. The offense called an audible, and the defense called an audible. They're both changing on the line of scrimmage. Shows you how sophisticated the game has gotten.
2nd down and 6.
And, of course, everyone thinking all the time.
All the time.
But, you know, today isn't only football going on today. It's the U.S. Open Tennis Men's Singles Final. There's a look at the score. John McEnroe defeating Ivan Lendl in the first set 6-3. And Lendl leading right now in the second set 2-1.
What a match yesterday. Lendl and Cash. Lendl coming back to beat Cash. Great tennis.
Frank Hawkins, the ball carrier. Tackle made by George Cumby. And it's one of the big things that the Raiders are really able to do. Of course, we all know about a great running back in Marcus Allen, but they have an arsenal of running backs back there, and they can put them in at any time. They get down close to the goal line, and all of a sudden you see Frank Hawkins in there.
And they had just a balanced attack. I mean, it's no secret what Jim Plunkett and the Raiders want to do. They just want to run the ball. They want to throw upfield. They have a balanced attack. They're a veteran team. They know what they can do, Jim, and they're comfortable with it. Even if they get behind, they're comfortable. They lead here 7-0.
As the Raiders lead the Green Bay Packers 7-0. Not a very productive first half for Marcus Allen. 7 carries, only 7 yards. 3rd and 2 for the Raiders. And Plunkett goes back to pass. He's sacked by Mike Douglas. Mike Mad Dog Douglas, as they call him. You know, he told us yesterday, he says, I'm going to make some big plays. I'm going to make some real big plays, and certainly he has this afternoon.
Boy, Mike Douglas, so much quickness. He has to rely on his quickness. He's only 6 feet, about 210 pounds. Watch him come from the outside. So quick, no chance right there. As Hanna tries to block him, he gets Plunkett and takes him down for the sack. What's a mismatch, Jim? Anytime you have a quick linebacker like a Douglas, and he's really undersized. He's not the Lawrence Taylor type of dominant 240-pound linebacker. He's more like a defensive back, speed and quickness. That time, offensive lineman Hanna at 6'5", 260 had no chance because he was just too quick.
It was very interesting talking to Mike yesterday because he had some problems in Green Bay, got suspended last year, and he was very open with us about it. He said he's the kind of individual who likes to speak his mind, and since Forrest Gregg has come and taken over as head coach of the Packers, he says he's had a great talk with Forrest Gregg. Forrest Gregg's philosophy fits his particular style of play perfectly. He's totally happy with the Green Bay area right now, and he's going to be an even better ball player. 4th down, and Ray Guy's back to punt. Not a very good punt for Ray Guy, but it does get a Raider bounce and gets up to about the Raider 48-yard line. So the ball went off the side of Ray Guy's foot, but it got a good bounce. And the Green Bay Packers will take over 1st and 10 at the Los Angeles Raider 48-yard line. So with 1 minute and 42 seconds left in the first half, it's the Raiders lead. Of course, we're all looking forward to those highlights from the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. But right now, 1 minute 42 left in the first half. The Packers have the ball in Raider territory. Here's a reverse to James Lofton. And Wright's out leading him for a block. James Lofton on the reverse. Forced out of bounds at about the 31-yard line of the Los Angeles Raiders. Good for 17 yards.
And of course, we've seen Lofton do that before, take the reverse and go all the way. But watch the quarterback, number 16, Randy Wright, out in front. Take down number 59, Stanley Adams, right, bing, right there. Gives Lofton a little extra running room. Look at that speed. He turns it on for some extra yards. Good position to score now.
1:34 left in the first half. 1st and 10. Play action pass. Off the fingertips and a little behind John Jefferson. Covered there by Mike Haynes.
And he had his tight end, Henry Childs, out in the flat, wide open. Wright looked a little tentative on that. But of course, he's got great coverage and bump and run on the outside. Right here, take a look at the bump and run. Jefferson fighting inside. He's actually open for a moment as Mike Haynes is behind him. But the ball is poorly thrown. No completion.
1:29 left in the first half. 2nd and 10 for the Packers at the Raider 31-yard line. Pitch back to Gary Ellis. Run pass. Complete to Henry Childs at about the 14-yard line of the Raiders. So the Packers right now are pulling out all stops. They are coming up with all kinds of trick plays. They had the reverse. They had the run pass. Good for 17 yards. And Lynn Dickey told us yesterday, he says, we may even have a run pass in there. And there it is.
But who does Gary Ellis think he is? Marcus Allen? This is a nice throw. Takes the ball very coolly. Here you see some motion to make it look like a run. He gets a little lead block out in front. And then he just flips the ball to Childs, who catches it in the hands, as you should. 1st down. Great field position.
Van McElroy in on the tackle for the Los Angeles Raiders. And there's a look at Henry Childs, who is a truly interesting story. Out of football all last year. The last time he played was with the Los Angeles Rams. He was an All-Pro with the New Orleans Saints. And Paul Kaufman was telling us yesterday, along with Lynn Dickey, that they really want this man to have a good game. Of course, they're going to miss Kaufman today. He is a great football player. But they also feel that if Henry Childs can have a great game, a decent game, where he can come up and make 6, 7, maybe 8 receptions, that will more than make up for the absence of Kaufman.
Now, yes, exactly right. He's been making some good receptions. He's not a speedy tight end. He's on those short patterns, and that's how they've been using him. You remember back in 1978 in New Orleans, caught 53 passes for almost 900 yards. So he is a good receiving tight end. Not a bad blocker, not a terrific blocker.
1st and 10 for the Packers. Right back to pass. Across the middle, complete to John Jefferson. And he's knocked down there by Van McElroy.
John Jefferson.
Who will knock your helmet off, Van McElroy. That's what they pride themselves. When you look at that secondary, you have great cornerbacks in Haynes and Hayes, but you have the hitters inside to also intimidate them. Take a look at it again. Here he is over in the middle. The blitz is on. It's picked up on the left-hand side. He just cuts underneath, and watch the hit he's going to take right there.
Wasn't it really amazing? We talked to Lester Hayes yesterday, and Lester said, and he's played with some good ones from Jack Tatum on, he said that Van McElroy consistently is the best free safety that he has ever played with.
And not only that, he went one step further to just say, in terms of being a deluxe hitter, Van McElroy is it, even more so than Jack Tatum. And you can, as you said, always rely on him. When you need him, he'll be inside. So when a John Jefferson or a Lofton comes inside, as a cornerback, you must have confidence that your free safety is going to be there.
1 minute and 3 seconds left in the first half, and the Packers are driving right now. They have the ball, second down and 3 yards to go at the Raiders' 7-yard line. And, you know, this is typically where the Packers really have you where they want you, especially when Lynn Dickey is in there, because from the 10-15-yard line on in, they aren't afraid to throw the ball, especially on quick slant patterns.
Or the quick takeoff to Lofton with the great speed and the good size.
Randy Wright at quarterback. And he's back to pass. Touchdown, Ed West. Randy Wright scrambling around, moving inside and out, hitting Ed West in the end zone for a touchdown. Mike Davis on the coverage there. And once again, we were told a little bit by Lynn Dickey that they wanted to make Mike Davis cover one-on-one on their tight ends.
But you're saying to yourself, who the heck is Ed West? Well, he's the backup tight end, and he's picking up the slack. Here, though, it's really Wright. Taking time. He's got the mobility. Bing West makes the catch. Davis is too far off. But how often have you seen one player pick up the slack for another? Kaufman's out. Childs is tiring. So West makes the catch for the touchdown.
Eddie Garcia to attempt the extra point. And it's good. So the Green Bay Packers, behind backups, come back to tie the game with 57 seconds left in the first half.
With 57 seconds left, it'll be interesting. What the Raiders will do depends upon what kind of field position they get. One of the reasons that this game is tied 7-7 is that Bucky Scribner, the punter for the Packers, has been having an excellent afternoon, having a 45-yard average, so the Packers have had good field position. The Raiders have not had great field position. So what they do here will depend upon how far Garcia puts the ball down the field, how much of a run back they get. But seldom do you see the Raiders, Jim, just sit on the ball. They like to take advantage of every opportunity they have.
And John, they have 3 timeouts left. So you can go a long ways in the National Football League with 57 seconds and 3 timeouts. Dokie Williams at the 6-yard line. He's belted down there by Estes Hood, and that's where the Raiders will take over 1st and 10 at about their own 22-yard line.
And, Jim, you mentioned the 3 timeouts. You also mentioned that you have Jim Plunkett as a veteran quarterback.
Next Saturday here on CBS Sports, college football. The Washington Huskies versus the Michigan Wolverines. 11 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock on the Pacific Coast. And here's another one. This will be a good one. The WBC World Super Welterweight Championship. Thomas the Hitman Hearns going against Fred Hutchins and the Woodward and Fraternity Stakes. You know, that's going to be a great matchup right there. Plunkett back on 1st down. In and out of the hands of Todd Christensen. John Anderson covering.
And it's interesting as you look at Plunkett and Todd Christensen. Last week, you know, Christensen was a holdout through most of the preseason. He wanted a new contract, and personally, I think he deserved it after catching 92 passes last year. But Christensen's timing and that little extra step, last week he didn't have it. He dropped a couple of balls. Plunkett overthrew him. Right there, the same situation. Mid-season, Todd Christensen probably would have caught that ball.
But he'll get more chances this afternoon. 46 seconds left. 2nd and 10 for the Raiders. Plunkett back to pass again. Robert Brown, the first man in, and Alfonso Carricker.
And that's where they've been weakest. The Packer defense last year only had 41 quarterback sacks. So what does Forrest Gregg do? He rebuilds the front four. He gets Carricker, he gets Humphrey, he gets a young man like Robert Brown, number 93. Take a look at him right here on the big rush. Comes over the top of Plunkett, and down he goes.
Just outside the 15-yard line.
The third sack of the day for the Packers for 22 yards. Three wide receivers in for the Raiders. Dokey Williams joining Cliff Branch and Malcolm Barnwell. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Good stiff arm by Marcus, and he gets up to about the 30-yard line.
The only thing I'd argue about there was him not getting out of bounds to save the timeout. So therefore the Raiders have to use one of their timeouts. Nice move, good straight arm. Doesn't get out of bounds. I'm a little surprised in Marcus.
Tackle made by Tom Flynn and Mark Murphy. Timeout on the field. That run good for 14 yards. 6 seconds left in the first half. The Raiders used their first of their 3 remaining timeouts, so they have 2 left.
So actually it didn't make that much difference because they have enough. It's with only 6 seconds left. You got to think that the Raiders will just put it up and send it downtown.
Here's a look at Forrest Gregg coming up at halftime. Scores, highlights, and U.S. Open Tennis Championships. Highlights from that with Brent and Irv. Forrest Gregg in his first year as head coach of the Green Bay Packers after getting a great deal of coaching experience around the league. San Diego, Dallas, Cleveland, Cincinnati.
It's interesting that the Raiders have decided with just 6 seconds left to put Ray Guy into the game and not take a chance. Of course, on 4th down, you wouldn't want to fumble. You wouldn't want to give the ball back to the Packers. So they're just going to ride it out here and go in 7-7 at the half.
Ray Guy punting for the Raiders. The Packers do not have anyone back deep. They don't want to take any chances, and they may even try to block it here. And they just let Guy punt it away. A booming kick. Inside the 10-yard line, down to about the 7. And on that punt by Ray Guy, that is the end of the first half. You are looking at Eddie Garcia, who's getting ready to kick off and start the second half of the Green Bay Packers.
And Dokey Williams for the Raiders.
Dokey Williams and Clee Montgomery. Montgomery on the right there, number 28, and Dokey Williams on the left to receive the second half kickoff as we are tied at 7. The home opener for the Los Angeles Raiders, and the Packers have come in here and played exceptionally well for 30 minutes. But this game is a 60-minute contest. Our second half is underway. Dokey Williams at the 4-yard line. Dokey Williams run out of bounds at about the 40-yard line. A 36-yard return knocked out there by Estes Hood.
You think Dokey Williams isn't setting the tone for the second half? Tom Flory says, okay, guys, you're the world champions. You're doodling around at 7-7. Now make something happen. Dokey Williams does exactly that. Great quick move to the outside there. And the second-year man from UCLA gives the Raiders great field position at the 40-yard line,
where they will take over 1st and 10. You remember, John, last week, the Raiders trailed Houston 7-0. They came out in the second half. It was Greg Pruitt on a fine punt return. Special teams got them off and rolling.
Lester Hayes has said that many times. You know, the first half belongs to the other team. The second half belongs to us.
Here's Plunkett back to pass. Complete to Cliff Branch. Knocked down there by Tom Flynn. So Cliff Branch, the 13-year veteran from Colorado, comes up with enough yards for the first down.
If you live by the zone, you can die by the zone. If you don't get a rush, those lanes will open up. Here, take a look at the slot. That's Branch across the middle. He clears the linebacker right there. Plunkett puts it in the hole. Christensen, meanwhile, is occupying the safety in the corner. First down.
At the Packer 43. Plunkett back to pass again. And he starts to run. Alfonso Carricker.
I don't think that's something that he wants to do. Couldn't find a receiver, took it up the middle on the quarterback keeper. 14 years out of Stanford. Jim Plunkett, remember he told us that he hurt a knee about a month ago and it was just coming around, and he doesn't want to run the ball now and take a shot on that knee. He wants to stay healthy and go for another Super Bowl.
2nd and 3 from the Packer 36-yard line.
That's what DJ said. If he floats, I should look for it.
Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen spinning and turning, tackled by the nose tackle, Terry Jones.
It's interesting, Marcus Allen in the first half carried the ball 8 times for 21 yards. But, you know, 14 of those came on the late, right before the half. So Marcus isn't having there. It's 9 for 25 yards. Not much of an afternoon for Marcus Allen.
But we all know that Marcus Allen is the kind of running back who can pop the big one at any time. Play action pass by Plunkett.
Good protection.
Good protection. Wide open, Malcolm Barnwell. Barnwell knocked out of bounds by John Anderson. About the 15-yard line. So, John, we are seeing where the Raiders get a big opening second half kickoff return and methodically just marching right down the field.
And the reason this is wide open is number 37, Mark Murphy, ran with Marcus Allen, and that opened the whole side of the field. See 37 right there? He ran downfield with the running back. Should have let him go and come up to make the tackle on Barnwell. Good game for the Raiders. 3 receptions, 54 yards for Barnwell.
1st and 10 for the Raiders, just outside the Packer 10. Plunkett's going to throw again. Intended for Malcolm Barnwell, knocked down there by Mark Lee. Good defensive play by Lee.
Interesting that Lee turned inside, Jim. Most cornerbacks will turn to the outside, shadow that receiver, and then put his hand up at the last minute. Here, Lee turned inside, so he had a better view of the ball. Ball is really well thrown. Lee just gets a hand up on it, or else Barnwell would have had that Plunkett pass.
One of the other things there, John, as you know, playing a defensive back yourself, is that Mark Lee had Malcolm Barnwell right on the sideline. So he was using that also as another device to use the good defensive play with. 2nd and 10. Toss back to Marcus. He fumbles the ball. And Cliff Branch picks it up and gets down to just about the 1-inch line, it looks like.
Is it sometimes better to be lucky than good? Marcus Allen coughs the ball up. Take a look at it here. It's the old pitch, right? The I pitch. He brings it upfield, carrying the ball on the inside hand, and he actually kicks it with his own knee. But look at Cliff Branch here. Oh, yeah, it'll come to me. He almost gets in the end zone, but no dice. What luck for the Raiders.
Down to the 1-yard line. 1st and goal. And Frank Hawkins trying to dig his way in there.
Look at Robert Brown trying to dribble the ball out of Hawkins' hands and take it upfield.
Terry Jones in on the tackle. You know, it's really amazing. You know, the Raiders, they're very slow in the first half, and they come out just like they did against Houston last week. And I mean, bang, 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 and they're knocking on your door.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They trailed 7-0. They got 24 straight points to win 24-14 last week. Second half, they're on fire here early.
Frank Hawkins again. Touchdown, Los Angeles. Frank Hawkins, who usually comes in those short yardage and goal line situations, spins and turns his way in for the touchdown. The Raiders now lead at 13-7, trying to make it 14.
He's got that low center of gravity here. And watch, right there, you see number 52, George Cumby, can hold on. Hawkins is only 5'9", 210 pounds. Hard to grab onto.
Chris Barr for the extra point. It is good. So the Los Angeles Raiders play 60 yards, 4 minutes and 9 seconds taken off the clock, capped off by the 1-yard touchdown run by Frank Hawkins, and they lead the Green Bay Packers 14-7. Chris Barr ready to kick off for the Raiders. Del Rogers and Harlan Huckabee back to receive for the Packers. Misses. Rogers at the goal line.
Watch the draw.
Del Rogers getting up to about the 15-yard line, and that's where the Packers will take over 1st and 10. Tackle there made by Derek Jensen.
It's a different year in the NFL. After you score a touchdown, you got to be careful what you do with it. Showing enthusiasm. Watch Hawkins here. Let me spike. Oh, maybe I shouldn't. It'll cost me some money, a fine. Still, he gets the touchdown, puts him ahead 14-7, and you sense the momentum has taken a sudden shift here in the second half.
Randy Wright back at quarterback for the Packers, replacing Lynn Dickey. Hand off to Jesse Clark. And Jesse Clark gets up to about the 20-yard line, where Reggie Kinlaw and Matt Millen make the tackle.
And you know, the Raiders went to the locker room at halftime, and you know, they turned up the intensity level a couple of notches. They said, okay guys, world champions, let's go out and show them what it's about. It's going to be interesting to see if the young Packers, with their rookie quarterback, can turn up their intensity level one notch to play with the Raiders this afternoon in the second half.
2nd and 5 from the Packer 20-yard line. Randy Wright at quarterback. Hand off to Gary Ellis. Ellis grabbed by Reggie Kinlaw, the nose tackle.
And Jim, in the first half, what amazed me, it's not exactly an awesome rushing attack that the Packers possess, but yet in the first half, Green Bay was able to rush the ball 14 times for 73 yards, and that's respectable against this Raider defense.
And there's Lynn Dickey behind Bob Schnelker in the white shirt there. Schnelker is the offensive coordinator. Dickey in the back, and you know it's just eating him up not to be in there. 3rd and 1. Jesse Clark. Clark tackled by Rod Martin.
Rod Martin on the stop.
So Jesse Clark, going off tackle, picks up enough yardage for the first down, as young Randy Wright is getting his baptism into the NFL in a hurry.
But when you talk to head coach Forrest Gregg about his 6th round draft choice, he said, well, we just couldn't pass up Randy when he was still on the board in the 6th round. He was just too good. As a matter of fact, Forrest and Snelker had him rated the number 2 quarterback in the draft this year.
He's number 1 right now. Gets it away from the blitz and throws it incomplete. Pass intended for Jesse Clark. Matt Millen, Howie Long putting tremendous pressure on Randy Wright. And he just got it away just in time.
2nd down and 10.
The Raiders continuing, John, to shift people around on defense, bringing in different people on personnel, trying to confuse the young guy. Right now, Greg Townsend comes in, Otis McKinney comes in, Jeff Barnes comes in. That's what they call their pirate defense. They're moving people all over the place. Once again, the ball is knocked down by Howie Long.
And you know what? I was just going to say that Howie Long presents the most problems to any defense when he's on the nose. That time, Howie Long, number 75, moved to the middle where his quickness and his strength can cause problems for any team. Larry McCarron, number 54, is trying to block him, but there he is, right in the quarterback's face. Now, again, he knocks the ball away with his left hand. We saw him do that in the first half. Howie Long.
And one of the things that the Raiders do with Howie, as we were talking to Tom Flores yesterday, is they will move him all over the defensive line. They want to turn him loose because he's one of the better athletes in all the National Football League.
And Jim, they're looking for a mismatch also. They're looking for a guy that may not be strong enough to handle or quick enough to handle Howie Long.
3rd and 10. Right back to pass. Going deep. Intended for Philip Epps, knocked away there by Lester Hayes. And Lester looks like he's hurt. Lester Hayes making a brilliant defensive play on Philip Epps. And the way he came down, John, it could be like something has to do with his left arm, his shoulder or his arm or something like that.
It certainly appears that way, and that's what they're checking right now. As you take a look at the isolated look on the near side receivers, Lester is running on the outside. You see him in his wild linebacker stance, very low. Philip Epps, the speedster, on the outside. Actually, Lester gets very lucky here because, see, if that ball was thrown outside away along the sidelines, that's a completion. Instead, it's thrown inside. Lester gets his hand on the ball and comes down on his left shoulder, and that could be the problem, his arm or his left shoulder. He's got those bad thumbs. He has them taped up.
So the Raiders certainly hope that Lester Hayes can recuperate and come back. 8:35 left in the third period. The Raiders leading the Packers 14-7. For the Green Bay Packers, Greg Pruitt at about his own 30-yard line. Flag on the play. Pruitt takes it about his own 35. He's run out of bounds at about the Raider 49-yard line, but there is a flag on a play.
But Jim, Tony Caldwell, number 57, the linebacker playing special teams, ran into Scribner after he got the ball. He actually almost blocked it, but he didn't do the thing you're supposed to do. And that, of course, is get in front of the kicker and lay yourself out. Instead, he had the wrong angle. And ran into the kicker. Packers get a first down. Take a look at it. Watch the right side of your screen. Here he comes. Caldwell. See where he jumped? He was out of control. Didn't have any body control, so he ran into the kicker. Gives the Packers a new life.
And a first down at their own 33-yard line. Randy Wright at quarterback. And right back to pass. Intended for Jesse Clark, Lyle Alzado, Rod Martin in on the tackle. US
There's the
Open
result.
Tennis Men's Final Championship.
McEnroe too tough for Lendl. He wasn't going to let a repeat of the French Open happen. Look at that. McEnroe 6'3", 6'4", 6'1". And there's Lynn Dickey along the sidelines. And the report is, Jim, that he has that sore back. They don't want to take a chance. He will not be back.
2nd and 10. Right going deep. Intended for Henry Childs, but he's double covered back there. Van McElroy and Mike Davis.
And Lyle Alzado, number 77, is manhandling number 67, Carl Swanky, on the offensive line. He just picked him up that time, threw him to the ground. Wright was forced to throw that ball a little bit early. He overthrew it. And my question to you, Jim Hill, where is James Lofton? Is he playing?
Lofton has not caught a single pass this afternoon. The only action that he's come up with was on that reverse. Other than that, he's been shut out by Mike Haynes.
You're talking about a game breaker who had 1,300 yards last year, almost 60 receptions.
Lester Hayes has returned to the lineup. 3rd and 10 for the Packers. Handoff up the middle. Gary Ellis, the ball carrier. Tackle there made by Bill Pickell.
at the stop.
You remember Lester telling us yesterday that those defensive backs gives these in the NFC give guys like Lofton too much respect. He said, to heck with that. I'm going to push him around. I'm going to shove him. I'm going to let him know what a real defensive back can do to a wide receiver. And forget about those punks, those defensive backs in the NFC. I'm going to show you what it's about. And he's doing it this afternoon.
Direct quote. That's right.
A direct quote.
4th and 10. Bucky Scribner back to punt. As Greg Pruitt to receive for the Raiders. Pruitt fumbles the ball at about his 11, and here he comes.
Greg Pruitt.
Tackle made by Mark Cannon.
He's down at the 20-yard line.
So with 7 minutes and 17 seconds left in the third period, it's the Los Angeles defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers in the white shirt, talking to Rich Campbell, Lynn Dickey, and of course Randy Wright. Jim Plunkett at quarterback for the Raiders. 1st and 10. And off to Marcus. Flag on the play. Preliminary call rather is holding against the Raiders. Alfonso Carricker and John Anderson in on the tackle.
And what a good play by your man Mike Douglas. Mosbar was trying to block him. He came underneath him, submarined him, and slowed down that play. And they called holding, I believe, right there. outstanding play. It was Don Mosbar, number 72, but Douglas just came on the blitz and took on Mosbar, who's 6'6", 270 pounds. Douglas only 210 pounds. Outstanding defensive play.
Don Mosbar from USC replacing the veteran Mickey Marvin. Now it's 1st and 20 for the Raiders at their 10-yard line. Draw play to Marcus Allen. Marcus stumbles just a little bit behind Cliff Branch. Gets up and picks up about 8 or 9 yards. Tackle there made by George Cumbie and Tim Lewis. Here's the third quarter score. The Rams and the Cleveland Browns are tied at 10. Indianapolis leading Houston. That may be a bit of a surprise to a lot of people there. In the third quarter, 21-14. And San Diego and Seattle tied in the third quarter, 10-10. Second and 13 for the Raiders. They lead the Packers 14-7. 6.5 minutes left in the third period. Toss back to Marcus Allen. Good defense there by Mike Douglas, swinging everything out, allowing George Cumbie to come over and make the tackle. And now Marcus is a little slow in getting up.
There's serious hitting on that field right now. You can hear it up here. Marcus Allen is on the ground.
And remember yesterday when we talked to Jim Plunkett, he said the one thing that he worries most about as far as this whole offensive club is concerned is keeping Marcus Allen healthy.
Of course, Marcus Allen is such a back with so many abilities to run the ball, to catch the ball. Here he gets a lead block from King, who's Douglas plays it pretty well, but King stays with him. And there's the hit right there. Good hit by Cumbie. Comes down on his shoulder, and Marcus Allen is out of the game.
But he's standing on his feet. Allen so far has 13 carries for 47 yards.
But this team is so deep. When we asked Tom Flores about Plunkett's comment, what if you lose Allen, the one man you can't lose, he said, you know what? We have Kenny King. We would make adjustments. We would use the talents of King and make our system fit our players. And that's really the mark of a good coach, making that system fit the talent of your players.
Greg Pruitt replaces Marcus Allen. 3rd and 8. Ball at the Raider 22. Plunkett goes back to pass. Looking for Barnwell. In and out of his hands. Malcolm Barnwell, covered there by Mark Lee, had the ball go into and right out of his hands.
Mark Lee covering in the play.
Should have been a completion, and with the result of that, the Raiders are going to have to punt.
Not a very good defensive scheme by the Packers. You'll see here a late safety blitz by Flynn. It's picked up. That leaves the cornerbacks naked one-on-one. Barnwell comes underneath, Lee trailing, just can't hold the ball. Admittedly, the ball was a little behind him, but he still could have caught it.
There's a look at Ray Guy. His longest punt this afternoon, 63 yards. That came at the end of the first half. Philip Epps back to receive for the Packers. A high punt. Goes out of bounds about the Packer 38-yard line. And that's where Green Bay will take over 1st and 10. So the Green Bay Packers have the ball. 5 minutes. Marcus Allen in the middle of your screen. Looks like he has recovered. The way he was hit, John, it looked like he may have gotten the wind knocked out of him just a little bit.
Well, he was in the air, and Cumbie came in almost like a breakaway missile. Hit him, he hit the ground, and you might be right. He looks healthy on the sideline. He looks fine.
Packers have the ball 1st and 10. And Randy Wright hands off to Gary Ellis. Stanley Adams making the tackle for the Raiders.
And
Stanley Adams is a young man who he's really on the spot, so to speak, because he's filling in for the retired Ted Hendricks.
Ah, the Stork.
Yes, he is a very quiet young man. And last week against the Houston Oilers, the Oilers ran at Stanley Adams' side 3 out of every 4 running plays. They wanted to test him out, and he withstood it. 2nd and 6 for Green Bay. Right play action pass. Going deep down the middle. Intended for Lofton. Just over his head. Incomplete. Covered there by Mike Haynes.
It's interesting when I said to Mike Haynes, you're going to play James Lofton bump and run tomorrow, a yard away from his face. what happens when 4.3 speed James Lofton takes off as he did there? Are you going to be able to run with him? And he looked at me and said, yes. And it was with all the humility he could muster, because you remember how embarrassed he got when he said, well, many people consider you to be the best defensive cornerback in the NFL. And he said, oh, well, there are other good ones. And he was embarrassed.
He kind of looked down at the ground and kicked it a little bit. That's right. But Lofton has no pass receptions this afternoon so far. 3rd and 6 for the Packers. White goes back to pass again. Feeling a little pressure, and he's finally brought down by Bill Pickel. So the Raiders once again, John, using a lot of different formations from a defensive alignment and getting in and putting pressure in on the young Randy Wright.
Bill Pickel, number 71, Greg Townsend, number 93, both in their second year, both contributing. See the nice move inside there by Townsend, putting pressure. Finally, he and Pickel get the sack. And Pickel, of course, last week had 3 sacks against a very mobile quarterback in Warren Moon. So he actually has very good speed and quickness, Pickel. So does Townsend.
You're looking at Greg Pruitt, waiting for the punt from Bucky Scribner. Pruitt at about the 9-yard line, about the 14-yard line. And Greg Pruitt taking the ball at his 14-yard line, getting it up to about the 30-yard line and getting the Raiders in good field position. Guy Prather in on the tackle.
Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago. They shut out Denver 27-0. The monsters of the Midway are back.
And that's really going to make for a very interesting contest next week, because it's an NFL game next week. It's the Green Bay Packers against those Chicago Bears. And the Packers, I'm sure, there's no doubt about it, they want to make sure they can get Lynn Dickey back in for that contest.
First game of the doubleheader, and the Packers here, even if they don't beat the Raiders, they're certainly getting a measure of confidence and respectability, because they're playing very well this afternoon.
Marcus Allen and Frank Hawkins in the backfield for the Raiders, and Plunkett goes back to pass. He's sacked there by John Anderson. Good coverage in the secondary by the Green Bay Packers. And John Anderson gets in and makes the sack. Pressure also in from Alfonso Carricker and Terry Jones. That's the 4th sack of the afternoon for the young Packers.
Plunkett had about 3.5 seconds to throw the ball, but he got a lot of pressure from Terry Jones, number 63, and Carricker, as you said. Watch it from the outside here. He gets some time, but the coverage downfield is outstanding as Anderson comes around the outside and pulls him down.
So the young Packers, as Forrest Gregg would want them to, are playing very hard. They trail by 7 during the 3rd period. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen up the middle. Finally tackled there by John Anderson. Looked more like Anderson was in the way than anything else.
Well, John Anderson, I mean, is the last 2 years, the Packers, he's been their most valuable defensive player, number 2 tackler on the team with 120 tackles last year. I mean, he grades out the highest for those linebackers, and they have some good ones. Scott and Cumbie, Douglas, we've all talked about a little bit, but Anderson is really an outstanding one. More of the size for a linebacker, 6'3", 230.
3 minutes, 11 seconds left in the 3rd period. Plunkett's back to pass again. Intended for Christensen, but almost intercepted by Tom Flynn. The ball thrown a little short then. Todd Christensen was the intended receiver, and Tom Flynn, who the Packer coaches are really thrilled about, they say that he's going to be a good one.
He's the rookie out of Pitt that's starting, one of 3 defensive players starting. Here, Plunkett has time. See Christensen running across the field right there. Obviously, Plunkett didn't see Flynn. They were playing inside and out, the safeties on Christensen. If he comes across the field, Flynn takes him. If he stays on the other side, Mark Murphy takes him. Plunkett didn't read that, almost an interception.
Ray Guy in punt formation. There's Philip Epps, number 85, to receive for the Packers. Another good kick by Guy. Epps at the 23. Flag is thrown, and Philip Epps is run out of bounds about the 33-yard line. Stacy Torin of the Los Angeles Raiders forces him out of bounds, but there was a flag on the play.
49 yards in the punt by Ray Guy.
It was James Davis on the block, number 45. He was pushing Gary Hayes, who was first down, to cover that punt, and that was a penalty, Jim.
Good job, JD. Illegal use of the hands. Number 27 of the receivers during the run back. First down at 10.
It might have been Frank Hawkins, actually number 27, getting that penalty. College football next week here on CBS. Washington Huskies against the Michigan Wolverines. Should be a good one, Jim.
Oh, it really will be. Of course, we know that yesterday Miami of Florida lost to Michigan 22-14. And, of course, that's going to be a great, great college football game right there.
Gary Ellis, Jesse Clark in the backfield.
The handoff is to Jesse Clark. This is an area of the field, John, I would think, where the Packers have to be especially careful because they're down by 7, 2 minutes and 39 seconds left here in the third period, and they don't want to do anything really silly because they know that the Raider defense is really going to take off and try and take advantage of any mistake they make now.
To the Packer credit, they haven't panicked. They're behind 14-7. They're still trying to run the ball. They're within themselves. They're not gambling so much that they can come up with a turnover and really give the game away to the Raiders.
Right back to pass. Complete to Harlan Huckabee. And Harlan Huckabee splits a couple of Raider defenders and picks up enough yardage right now for the first down. Stanley Adams and Bob Nelson in on the tackle. That's Van McElroy, who some of his teammates are trying to pull away from him. The Raiders, as you mentioned a couple of moments ago, John, they're turning up that intensity level just a little bit, and you can really start to see it, and you can really start to feel it as their emotional level is really starting to rise.
Well, they won the World Championship last year, and we talked a little bit about complacency, and both Tom Flores and Jim Plunkett said, look, there are enough veterans on this team from that 1980 championship team to remember what happened in 1981, and we're not about to let down. We're hungry. We came to camp in good shape.
First and 10 at their own 31-yard line. Here's the reverse again to Lofton, who's going to, it looked like he wanted to throw, but he slipped and fell. Rod Martin and Bob Nelson in on the tackle.
And that's just great contain by the Raider linebackers. Martin and Nelson read it well. He had no chance to go. Lofton coming around the outside. He needs that room outside. It just wasn't there because the Raiders know that James Lofton is one of the big play men on the reverse. And here's a lot of penetration. Ellis was lucky to get that ball off. And here to contain forces, there it is, number 51, Bob Nelson, finally tackled by Martin, forces Lofton to turn around, and then the pursuit got him.
So with the loss, it's 2nd and 21.
Timeout is called.
A timeout on the field has been called by the Green Bay Packers.
Ladies and gentlemen,
56 seconds left in the third period. And the Packers called the first of their 3 timeouts left here in the second half.
is 12-year-old Jason Pace from Fillmore, California.
There's a look at James Lofton, who, you know, he's frustrated. You know, he's just got to be frustrated. He hasn't caught a pass this afternoon. He tries to throw a pass on a reverse. He slips and falls. He's been totally frustrated. But you have to, on the other side of the coin, you have to look at Mike Haynes. Haynes has done a brilliant job of covering him.
That's right. And when we talked to James yesterday, he wanted to come across with that cool, professional demeanor. Yes, I am the best in the game, and really I'm not that concerned about the people I play against. I'm just going to go out and do my thing, and if it happens, great. If it doesn't, well, it'll happen next week. Last week it happened for James Lofton as he had 7 catches. He had a good afternoon. Of course, Jefferson only had 1 catch last week. He's carrying more of the load here today, along with Henry Childs. Lofton shut out in a game. That doesn't happen very often.
James Lofton and John Jefferson. A lot of people say they're the finest pair of wide receivers on any team in the National Football League.
They are. You can talk about Joyner and Jefferson. You can talk about Stanley Morgan and Irvin Fryer. These are the best.
Right back to pass. Throws deep down the field. Intercepted by Van McElroy. McElroy, who Lester Hayes told us was the best free safety he has ever played with, comes up with an interception as the ball was intended for John Jefferson.
The third-year player out of Baylor is where he should be. The Raider defense is a classic defense in the secondary. Man-to-man on the outside. They rely upon the free safety being in the middle, going to the ball. That's exactly where he was. You see Philip Epps, number 85, running the post there. He's being covered by Mike Haynes. McElroy is inside. Haynes knows he's there. The interception. Raiders have the ball.
1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 45-yard line. And Plunkett goes back to pass. Tosses out in the flat to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen is thrown out of bounds by Mark Lee. You know, everyone talks so much about, and deservingly so, about Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes. But the reason they say they are so successful, besides the obvious talent that they have, is because of their offensive, their defensive push up front, the front seven, and also because of Mike Davis and Van McElroy. Lester told us yesterday, say we wouldn't be any place unless we had those two people in the middle.
And you know what amazed me about Lester is that he's such a cerebral defensive back. He keeps that book. We saw him walking home with films, taking him to his car on Friday.
Plunkett again back to pass. Throwing down the middle, intended for Todd Christensen. A flag has been thrown. Tom Flynn was covering.
Tom Flynn was not only covering, he actually got tangled up and tackled Todd Christensen. And Christensen says, hey, that was my chance for a touchdown. What are you doing to me? You're only a rookie out of Pitt. Leave me alone. Don't you know I'm the best in the game?
Defensive pass interference. Number 41, 1st down.
So after the interception by Van McElroy, the Raiders have the ball. 1st and 10 at the Green Bay Packer 39-yard line. It is not quite as hot and humid as we expected it to be. A lot of people thought it would be about 95, but with the cloud covering, it's down in the low 80s now. Here's Kenny King.
And off to Kenny King.
King tackled by Mike Douglas.
Stopped at the 36-yard line by Mike Douglas.
You know, most people talk about Marcus Allen and they forget about Kenny King. I mean, he's undersized for a fullback at 5'11", 305, but Kenny King, you recall, Jim, was the man who helped to take them to a Super Bowl and to win it a few years back. So Kenny King, when you look at his career stats, they're impressive. Almost 4.5 yards a carry, outstanding speed, 6-year man out of Oklahoma.
And with that carry by Kenny King, that was the last play.
Style, innovation, quality, and the value that make up today's Chevrolet. And by Sharp Electronics Corporation. From Sharp Minds comes Sharp Products.
Along with John Dockery, I'm Jim Hill as we begin the 4th period. Los Angeles Raiders leading the Green Bay Packers 14-7. 2nd and 7 for the Raiders, and Plunkett goes back to pass. His intended, or the nearest receiver, was Malcolm Barnwell. Looked that time, John, like there was a little bit of miscommunication between Barnwell and Plunkett.
I think there probably was, but the most obvious thing to me right there is that Plunkett had 5 seconds to throw the ball and still wasn't pressured, and maybe that's one of the reasons that he's 12 for 19, 134 yards, 1 touchdown. He's getting some time. Not an outstanding afternoon for Plunkett, but a workmanlike performance for these Raiders.
Jim Plunkett, who has led the Raiders to their last 2 Super Bowl championships. 3rd and 7. Hand off to Kenny King. Kenny King gets inside the 20-yard line. Tackle there made by Tim Lewis and John Anderson.
You might also say that tackle missed by number 41, Tom Flynn. And the rookie from Pittsburgh is learning what it's about to play against the really fine running backs in the NFL. Kenny King, one of them. You see Marcus Allen coming in for a good block on the linebacker. Watch this move right here. Ooh, can't grab the air. Kenny King finally pulled down by Tim Lewis, number 26.
And that block by Marcus Allen that we just saw is one of the things that makes him so popular with his ball club. He goes in there, he sticks his nose in there. 1st and 10 for the Raiders. Plunkett to pass again. Across the middle of Cliff Branch. Tom Flynn in on the tackle.
And the reason they were able to get that play off is they kept both backs in. They kept King, they kept Allen in maximum protection to give Plunkett a little extra time, a quick slant, and he saw the blitz, delivered the ball, completion to Branch.
That was Branch's 5th reception of the afternoon.
Take a look at it from ground level, and you get a feel for what it's about. Here's the blitz. See it right here? Here comes the blitz, a little bit delayed. He gets it off in a hurry. Did he catch it? He's juggling. Yeah, he had possession before he hit the ground. I think it was a good call.
Hand off to Marcus Allen. Touchdown, Los Angeles. Marcus Allen, behind excellent blocking up front by his offensive line, takes it in from 8 yards out, and the Raiders now lead 20-7. Matt Barr is in to attempt the extra point. And it is good. Later, after the 8-yard touchdown run by Marcus Allen to give Los Angeles a 21-7 lead over the Packers. Del Rogers and Harlan Huckabee back to receive. Huckabee 2 yards deep in the end zone. Harlan Huckabee is brought down about the 18-yard line by Darrell Byrd. So the Los Angeles Raiders lead it 21-7, 6 plays, going 55 yards, taking 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Of course, capped off by the 8-yard run by Marcus Allen.
And if you're the Raider offensive coordinator, you have to be happy with certain plays. The first drive, 8 plays, 63 yards, and then an 8-play, 60-yard drive, and now this fine drive. So they've been consistent on offense. It really hasn't been the big play bomb so characteristic of the Raiders.
1st and 10 for Green Bay. Right play-action pass. Intended for Henry Childs and knocked down there by Matt Millen. Matt Millen coming up with a very good defensive effort, knocking the ball away from Henry Childs, who had it in his hands temporarily.
Randy Wright isn't having the greatest second half you've ever seen. He is now 1 for 9 for 13 yards, 1 interception. Here, Howie Long finally gets some pressure, but he had enough time. Good play by Millen in front of Childs to knock that ball away. Actually distracted him, might have gotten a piece of it.
2nd and 10 for the Packers. Raiders now have 5 defensive backs in. Toss back to Gary Ellis. Ellis tries to turn the corner, but is bumped out of bounds there. Otis McKinney, Lyle Alzado coming over to force him out of bounds.
How about this? Green Bay Packers have not won a game in the LA Coliseum since Super Bowl I, way back January 15th, 1967. And wasn't that the team that Forrest Gregg played on? Sure.
He was. He was.
And he's back here again at Coliseum. He's trailing 21-7. And that's Paul Kaufman standing next to him. Boy, could they use Kaufman at this moment. Ooh.
They certainly could. 3rd and 4 for Green Bay. Flags on the play. We saw Howie Long move a little bit in the defensive line for the Raiders.
Encroachment, number 75 on the defense, 1st down.
That's who it was against, Howie Long. You know, the question you'd ask yourself now, I'm trailing 21-7 Green Bay. Does Green Bay have enough weapons against a terrific Raider defense? I would say yes. They have Lofton and Jefferson. Of course, they'd like to have Lynn Dickey in there, but Randy Wright has some ability. He can scramble, he can run, he can make things happen in an improvisational way.
Once again, more flags. Illegal procedure against Green Bay.
So the penalty's even off.
False start, number 16 on the offense, 5-yard penalty, still first down.
Now the false start by Randy Wright is that he started to lean back from the center, Larry McCarron, before the ball had been snapped. And that just naturally attracts those the defensive people from the Raiders.
Well, Jim Hill, if you looked across the line and saw Howie Long snorting smoke from his nostrils and Lyle Alzado over there groaning, you might pull out a little quickly, too.
No, I wouldn't get under there to begin with. Okay? First and 15 for the Green Bay Packers. Right back to pass. Complete to Jesse Clark. Stanley Adams tripping up Jesse Clark.
Stanley Adams is an interesting story. You talked about him a little bit before about being on the spot. This man has been injured for the last 2 years. He's been on injured reserve, 1982, 1983. He's had those knee problems. He's back now after an incredibly tough rehabilitation period, and he's replacing Ted Hendricks, the Stork, as you said.
The Raiders again with 5 defensive backs. They lead Green Bay 21-7. 12 minutes and 20 seconds left in the ball game. And Wright goes back to pass. Intercepted by Jeff Barnes. Jeff Barnes, who comes in passing situations. A great role player, comes up with the interception, and he's knocked out of bounds by Jesse Clark.
And credit that interception to the incredible strength of Howie Long, number 75. He occupies 2 men, and that allows number 99, watch the right side of your screen, 99, watch this, come around the outside, put a little pressure on the quarterback. He doesn't see Barnes, the interception. Howie Long is just so strong that you can't block him with 1 man. And of course, in an end tackle game, you see number 99 come around the outside. After Long, watch him here, occupies 2 men. All right, that's Swanky trying to handle him. They can't handle him. He rushes inside, and he even gets to the quarterback through 2 men.
So with the great pass rush, Jeff Barnes comes up with an interception to give the Raiders the ball inside Packer territory. Will be who applied the pressure, which led to the interception. And now the Raiders have the ball first and 10. Packer 19. Frank Hawkins up the middle. Hawkins is tackled there by Bill Neal.
And you get the feeling that the Raiders, the world champion Raiders, are wearing down the Green Bay Packers. But Forrest Gregg has to be happy with his team. He has 9 rookies on his club, and he was concerned that maybe some of them would be so wide-eyed when they came out and saw the silver and black and the Raiders, that intimidating team, that they would just lay down and die. They haven't done that. They play tough, aggressive football, which is what he demands.
2nd and 8 for the Raiders. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Allen spinning before he's brought down by Tom Flynn.
You know, I thought it was interesting yesterday when we talked to Marcus Allen, and you asked him the question, Marcus, what would you like to do before your career is over? And he said, you know, I'd be lying to you if I told you I wouldn't like to get O.J.'s record, get over that 2,000-yard mark. And we said, hey, Marcus, that'll never happen in this system. He said, well, I can still dream.
That's right. He and O.J. are very, very good friends. And he said that all the stories about O.J. teaching him everything that he, Marcus, has known and acquired in the National Football League is stretched just a little bit.
Both good running backs, wouldn't you say? An understatement. But you know what I thought was interesting when we were talking to Marcus was the fact that at Robinson, when he was at USC, used to instill in those tailbacks that they were supermen, that they were indestructible, invincible.
By the offense, 5-yard penalty, still 3rd down.
That they couldn't be hurt, that they could do anything. And he had a little of that last week when he got in that fight. He said, all of a sudden, I felt like Robinson had told me that, and I remembered it, and I was Superman once again, taking on those big guys in Houston.
Got a gash in his forehead for that, too.
That's right.
Talking about John Robinson, his coach at USC. Plunkett goes back to pass. Intended for Cliff Branch. Intercepted in the end zone.
Oh, what a big play by Tim Lewis. Good recovery, Jim, and you can appreciate that. Branch actually had him for a step. The ball wasn't thrown soon enough, hard enough, or far enough So Lewis had time to recover. Branch, I'm amazed after 13 years how Branch can still fly. Take a look at him here. They're playing some man-to-man. It's half bump and run. It's half man-to-man. See, he loses him there for a minute, but the ball's not thrown far enough out. He makes a good recovery. Shows outstanding hands for a defensive back. The Packers.
It should be a good one, don't you think, here?
Oh, the hitman. Oh, what a... He's actually looking down the road, the hitman. He wants that big, big showdown with marvelous Marvin Hagler, and this should be a good one. He's on his way. And some people say the hitman now is on his way up, hasn't reached his peak yet, and may be the best fighter in that division.
Going against Fred Hutchins, and of course, after that will be the Woodward and Futurity Stakes. Rich Campbell is in at quarterback now for the Green Bay Packers. And Campbell goes back to pass. Across the middle. Matt Millen, Bob Nelson in on the tackle. The pass there received by John Jefferson. So Rich Campbell comes in now, replacing Randy Wright.
You know, Randy Wright was in a difficult situation. He actually beat Campbell out in preseason, but he was a rookie, and Forrest Gregg wants to get something going. Of course, Lynn Dickey is out. He has those back strain on the sidelines. He's on the sidelines, but he can't play. Figured nothing happening with Wright in the second half. Let's try Campbell. Let's see if he can put the spark in the offense that we need.
Rich Campbell from University of California. Hands off to Jesse Clark. Clark tackled there by Howie Long. Howie Long having an outstanding afternoon. And here's another exciting game going on for you this afternoon. Cleveland and the Rams are tied at 17 all in the fourth period.
We're going to see those Rams next week when they play Pittsburgh.
That's right.
As Indianapolis, look, goes ahead of Houston 28-21. I'm a little surprised. Houston, to me, is one of the most improved teams in the league, but Mike Pagel, 14-yard touchdown to Buffalo. There's Seattle over San Diego, 17-10. Seattle, Franco Harris, his debut for the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, yeah. 9:15 left in the ball game here. First and 10 for the Packers. They trail 21-7. Campbell back to pass. Ball just out of the reach of Henry Childs. And Van McElroy is there.
You know, when Campbell was drafted in the first round in 1981 by the Green Bay Packers out of Cal Berkeley, they had incredible high hopes for him. They thought he would be the next franchise in Green Bay. It hasn't turned out that way. He just hasn't developed the way they thought he would be. He's a very intelligent quarterback, possibly the smartest of the three, but the rap on him, Jim, is his inability to throw the ball. He does not have a great arm.
That was a perfect example right there. Second and 10 now for the Packers. The Raiders have 5 defensive backs in the game. Rich Campbell at quarterback. And Campbell goes back to pass again. Going deep downfield, intended for Lofton. Once again, great coverage by the Los Angeles Raiders on James Lofton. Lester Hayes back there.
And you sense, Jim, when you look at Lester Hayes, it's not pure physical ability, though he has outstanding pure physical ability. He's the man that takes that film home. Remember when we talked to him, there he was on Friday with 3 canisters of film and his old T-shirt on, getting into his red Corvette in the parking lot, telling us that he was going to study James Lofton. As you look at the rush getting to Campbell there, Howie Long, but that Lester Hayes was going to study James Lofton. He had films from 1978, and he said, you know what? Receivers don't change their habits. They do things, and I want to find that consistent thread. And that's one of the reasons that Lester Hayes can cover James Lofton so well. He knows sooner or later they're going to come with the bomb. That time he had it covered so well.
Isn't it amazing that when Lester Hayes first started to turn into a defensive back, he was a linebacker down at Texas A&M, and one of the people that he first started to study was Mike Haynes.
And there's an injury on the field. Howie Long was shaken up, but he's indestructible. He's walking off the field.
Feeling we're being followed?
They're coming over to Chevy Cavalier.
You better explain.
Well, sometimes...
Back and Rich Campbell trailed the Los Angeles Raiders 21-7. Third and 10 for Green Bay at their own 30-yard line. Third down conversions for the Packers this afternoon, not good at all. 3 of 12. And Campbell's back to pass. Throwing deep down the middle over the head of John Jefferson, who was surrounded by 3 Los Angeles Raiders that time.
And remember, at the top of the show, we talked about the matchups, the Lofton, Jefferson, Hayes, and Haynes matchup. And to this moment, James Lofton doesn't have a catch, and all Jefferson has is 3 for 19. So the matchup, the confrontation, is being won by the defense at the moment.
And the reason for that, as Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes will tell you, is because of that defensive front alignment of the Raiders has been putting on tremendous pressure.
This man, Scribner, has been helping to keep him in the game. Last week, a 49-yard average. Today, a 45-yard average.
Greg Pruitt back for the Raiders. Takes it about his 27-yard line. Tackle there made for the Green Bay Packers by Guy Prather.
Brings Greg Pruitt down.
And the Green Bay Packers on defense have been playing well, but now's the time when there's 8
Packers are inexperienced, and they'll try and take advantage of it. 1st and 10. Jim Plunkett at quarterback. Toss back to Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen tackled once again by Bill Neal.
Alfonso Carricker.
Finals from earlier today around the National Football League. St. Louis over Buffalo 37-7. The Giants beating Dallas. A big upset there. Big day for Phil Simms. And Chicago shutting out Denver 27-0.
2nd down and 6.
There's an overtime game. Detroit over Atlanta by 3. Kansas City beating Cincinnati by 5. And it's 2nd down for the Raiders here. Toss back to Kenny King. Tom Flynn coming up making the tackle for the Packers. Some other finals today. It's Philadelphia over Minnesota 19-17. And New England losing to Miami 28-7. The Dolphins off and rolling. And New Orleans, the Saints with beating Tampa Bay today 17-13.
New Orleans bouncing back after that loss last week. A lot of people expecting New Orleans to go a long way to the playoffs. Forrest Gregg hoping to rebuild this team, make it competitive, possibly get to the playoffs.
He'd certainly like them to bounce back here on defense. 34 for the Raiders. Plunkett goes back to pass. Across the middle, complete to Todd Christensen. Tackle there made by Mark Murphy.
Mark Murphy all by himself as the blitz came. What I don't understand there, Jim, is number 41, Tom Flynn, came on the delayed blitz. He came so late, he was wasted. He would have done it a lot better to stay back. He could have stayed back and helped out his strong safety, Mark Murphy. And there you see the blitz coming from the outside with Anderson. Actually, Todd thought he could have gotten more here, possibly gotten away. He's angry with himself. He demands a lot of himself. He believes he's the best tight end in football, and he wants to prove it every time he steps onto the field.
Certainly has the credentials from last year, 92 receptions. 1st and 10 for the Raiders. Hand off to Marcus Allen. Marcus falling forward. Donnie Humphrey in on the tackle.
You know, it was interesting when we were talking to Marcus. I was really shocked when he said, you know, yeah, I love playing football and I love getting yards and I like championships, but you know what? My Heisman Trophy is back gathering dust in my apartment. My Super Bowl ring is there also. The thing that gives me the biggest kick playing football and why I've been so fortunate is that every week when I'm at home, my parents can come and watch me play. And you could see his eyes sparkle, how sincere he was about sharing all of the joy, all of the glory.
I've seen his father's eyes sparkle here also. He's at every Raider game. Marcus Allen right now, 68 yards on 18 carries. Marcus again. Donnie Humphrey.
Whoa!
And there's Marcus.
Second fight in 2 weeks.
Getting into it with John Anderson.
And Marcus said, we said, Marcus, your reputation is one of being kind of a cool professional, unflappable. He said, wait a minute, you know that I used to be a linebacker and a defensive back, and a very good one, so I'm used to being physical and hitting people.
Greg Pruitt just went out on the field to talk to Marcus, and Marcus will tell you, he'll tell you that Greg Pruitt has done a great deal for the success that he's had so far in the National Football League. This particular time, as you see right here, Humphrey gets in on him and just stops him from making any gain at all.
Ooh, and then someone came in there near his knee. That's got to make a running back tremble. But Marcus said, heck no, I'm a tough running back. I played defense. I'm only a running back for the last 5 years. I'll mix it up. This game is getting a little hot at the moment. These guys are, Packers are a little bit frustrated.
You know, you certainly don't want to see anyone get hurt in any kind of situation like this. But we talked a little while ago. Once again, the penalty against the Raiders. False start, illegal procedure. But Marcus has done a lot with instances like that to gather even more confidence from his teammates.
False start by the offense, still third down.
Well, I think any ball player will respect another ball player if he knows he's willing to put his nose in there and mix it up. And of course, it can bring a team together. Last week, remember Alzado coming out to help and some of the other guys coming out to help Marcus. That brings a team together.
5 minutes and 9 seconds left in the ball game. 3rd and 11 for the Raiders at their own 42-yard line. And Plunkett goes back to pass. And he's sacked. Terry Jones, the nose tackle.
Terry Jones.
And I'm a little surprised to see this veteran offensive line, as good as they are, having so much problem with the young defensive line. There, Terry Jones, the nose tackle, gets in for a sack. Take a look at it right here. See him up in the middle there? He just beats right there. Number 52, Jim Romano. Of course, Romano is replacing the 13-year veteran Dave Dalby, but they have high hopes for Romano right there. Terry Jones manhandled him for the sack.
The 5th sack of the afternoon for the Packers. Ray Guy in punt formation for the Raiders. Philip Epps at his 27-yard line to receive for the Packers. Driving Epps back to about the 12-yard line. Actually takes about the 17th flag down. And Philip Epps is slammed to the ground. Frank Hawkins, who scored a touchdown this afternoon, goes down and makes a contribution on the special teams.
Gary Hayes was pushing on that play, number 27 for the Packers, and there's the penalty. Moves the ball back. Poor field position for the Packers, but I must remind everybody, remember, it's 21-7. There's 4.5 minutes left in this game. It's not over yet. They can get a big play to Lofton or Jefferson and get the ball back in a hurry. They'll have a shot.
Illegal use of the hands on the run back. Number 27 of the receivers. It's first down at 10. Timeout.
Timeout on the field. With 4 minutes and 35 trail, Los Angeles Raiders 21-7. And this is really dangerous, as you know now, John, because you know what the Packers have to do with 4:35 left. The Raiders know, and you just can really feel that pass rush and the defensive unit's getting a little bit more psyched up.
And besides that, the Packer offense, of course, is hamstrung with Lynn Dickey being out of the game. Rich Campbell has only seen action in really one regular season game in his 4-year career. This is a tough spot for the Packers.
Handoff to Gary Ellis. Tackle made by Bob Nelson and Mike Haynes.
And I'd be surprised if Forrest Gregg would go for respectability. I mean, they're trailing 21-7, the Green Bay Packers. They've gained a measure of respect this afternoon against these world champion Raiders, especially with their quarterback being hurt. But I can't see not going for the win. Does it matter if you lose 21-7 or 28-7? You got to go for it if you expect your team to have that kind of confidence and believe they can play with the good teams.
Well, let's see if they put it in the air now. 1st and 10. And they don't. Once again, keeping it on the ground with Gary Ellis, Sean Jones, the rookie from Northeastern, in on the tackle.
To me, it's a commentary on the quarterback position. If in this situation with 3 minutes and 35 seconds left, you don't put the ball up in the air and try to get a score, especially when you have great receivers like Lofton and Jefferson. Of course, if that man, number 12, Lynn Dickey, were in the game, you know the air would be filled with footballs.
Rich Campbell. And he goes back to pass now, John. Intended for James Lofton and knocked away there by Mike Haynes.
James Lofton yet to catch a pass. That ball, not enough zip on it.
Dickey was telling us yesterday, he says, I just don't think that they can cover our guys man-to-man for the entire 60-minute period.
Boy, they've been doing it, though.
They
Take a look right here.
Oh, yeah.
Watch Mike Haynes. Shadows, watches, reacts. What perfect body position. Steps in front, knocks the ball away. No interference. Outstanding coverage. I mean, you couldn't draw it up any better. If you were teaching a clinic, you couldn't show anyone any better how to cover a wide receiver. And the best wide receiver in the game, fantastic speed, size, ability.
3rd and 7. And flags are down. False start illegal procedure again against the Green Bay Packers.
False start, setting up too early. Number 61 of the offense. 5-yard penalty, still 3rd down.
David Dressler. There's a look at the clock. 3 minutes and 11 seconds left. You know, we're talking about Lofton. He was kind of quiet and laid back and nonchalant yesterday in our meeting with him. He's been quiet today.
He certainly has. This man's quiet because he knows I have a team. I have depth. I have a good shot at going back to my 2nd Super Bowl in a row, and my schedule isn't that difficult.
What an outstanding job he has done. Campbell back to pass again. Across the middle, complete to Harlan Huckabee. Tackle made by Otis McKinney.
Otis McKinney on the tackle.
Not enough yardage for the 1st down. But you have 2 minutes and 54 seconds left. And the offensive unit for the Packers are staying on the field.
You might as well go for it. What's the sense of kicking it away? You're down by 2 touchdowns. You have to go for it.
Absolutely right. There's no mistake about that. 4th and 3. Packers have the ball at their own 25-yard line. Rich Campbell, 3 wide receivers in for the Packers. And he's back to pass again as expected.
Oh!
I think that's probably what Campbell said when Howie Long just hit him. Oh!
Because you know what he was doing? He was looking at Greg Townsend, number 93, who was containing the play, and he never saw Howie Long. Howie Long went, oh, that flew into him. What a hit. How would you like to be a quarterback in the NFL? Take a look at what it requires to be and the hits you have to take. Here's Campbell dropping back. He tries to buy a little time by rolling out. Here, he's contained, and he never sees. Oh, he greets him right in the chin strap. Does that hurt? Whew.
There is no question that Howie Long is one of the finest defensive linemen in all of professional football.
And you know what I think is interesting about him? He says, I am the blue-collar defensive end. I'm not the glamour boy like Mark Gastineau. I play the run, I play the pass. I play every down.
And as a result, the Raiders take over. Here's a handoff to Marcus Allen again. Shifting directions. Marcus Allen getting down inside the 5 to about the 3-yard line.
You cannot teach instinct, and that's what Marcus Allen has. He glides, he moves. Here it's an improvisational play. He cuts back. He's probably one of the best cutback runners in the game, and he just slithers his way through. See him switch the ball there? You know how much control you have to use the straight arm. He straight arms number 53 and get some extra yards.
And for as good as Marcus Allen is, the thing that people have to remember that this is only the 5th year that he's been at the running back position, counting pro and in college. So the Los Angeles Raiders lead the Green Bay Packers 21-7, 2 minutes to go in our ball game.
Incredible. He has another shot at the Super Bowl coming up.
And an excellent coach. 2nd and 1. Jenkins again. And Derek Jensen.
And this offensive team, this Raider team, is built by the formula that all the great Raider teams were built in. Al Davis likes it. Tom Flores likes it. You get that big offensive line to protect the quarterback. You get those great defensive backs, those great cornerbacks to cover the receivers and keep the ball out of the end zone, and you go from there. And that's exactly how this Raider team is built. They've got a standing offensive line and great cornerbacks.
Their philosophy has remained the same for years and years, and it has been productive. 3rd and 1. And Jensen gets in for the score. Capped off by a nice little easy toss to the official.
But isn't that a nice gesture? Derek Jensen, listed as a tight end, sixth year out of Texas Abilene. Well liked by his teammates, the captain of the special teams. They give him that touchdown close to the goal line. Means a lot to him, would mean less to Marcus Allen.
So the Raiders, with a couple of breaks, have worn down the Packers here in the second half. Chris Barr in to attempt the extra point. Once again, straight and true. 41 seconds left in the ball game, and the Raiders lead the Green Bay Packers 28-7. And things have really kind of just fallen apart for Forrest Gregg and his young, inexperienced Packers.
But to his credit, this team did not totally fall apart. And when you so important, Lynn Dickey, you lose them that early in the game, and you still play the Raiders as tough as the Packers have played them today, I think you have to give credit to Forrest Gregg, his philosophy, and his coaches and his team.
Well, they've hung right in there. The executive producer, Terry O'Neill. The senior producer, Charles H. Milton III. Today's game was produced by David Dinkins Jr. and directed by Mike Arnold. And the rest of our terrific CBS staff out here on the West Coast.
Chris Barr lining up the ball for the kickout.
So the Raiders in their home opener once again come on strong in the second half.
And the Raiders will go 2-0. They're starting off strong. Last week, a win against Houston. Not an artistic masterpiece. Today, not an artistic masterpiece. But the Raiders are notoriously slow starters.
Matt Barr with a dribble kick right down the middle of the field. Harlan Huckabee on the return. Tackle there made by Darrell Byrd. 34 seconds left in our ball game. And the Packers down by 3 touchdowns, 28-7.
But what you have to be most impressed with about the Packers is their defensive problems were legendary last year. Everyone knew what a defense they had. They were the worst defense in the NFL. Today, they've improved dramatically, even though the score doesn't indicate it's 28-7. But a couple of those touchdowns really weren't their fault. Of course, they went for it on fourth and short fourth late in the game here, and that's almost like giving away a touchdown. Defense has played well overall. Offense without Dickey just is not the same.
And, of course, shutting out James Lofton. And Campbell goes back to pass for the Packers. Pass is thrown and complete to Del Rogers. He's tackled there by Larry McCoy.
And on the other side of the coin for the Raiders, what can you say about them? They're deep at every position. They're talented. They're together. They're injury-free for the most part. And they're on their way to the playoffs again.
2nd and 2. Campbell back to pass. Completed to Del Rogers again. And once again, Larry McCoy in on the tackle. 1 second left in the ball game, and it is history. So the Los Angeles Raiders, after being tied by the Packers at halftime 7-7, come back to score 3 touchdowns in the second half, and they defeat the Green Bay Packers 28-7. So the Raiders win their